Good evening. I now call the Rocklin Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, January 20th, 2021 to order. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp.
Here.
Rick Miller.
Here.
Rochelle Price.
Here.
Tiffany Sathoff.
Here.
Derek Counter.
Here. Are there any public comments regarding closed session items?
There are no comments for closed session.
All right, thank you. The board will now adjourn to a closed session regarding the items listed on the agenda. The board will resume open session at 6:30 p.m. Good evening. The meeting is now reconvened to open session. The board previously met for closed session. Here. We want to remind the public watching that this meeting is held pursuant to the procedures established in Executive Order N-2920 issued by California Governor Gavin Newsom on March 17, 2020 in response to COVID-19. The public may view this meeting through RUSD's YouTube channel live stream and provide public comments through the links on the RUSD website as well as on the board agenda under item 2.1. Per board bylaw 9323 on meeting procedures and to allow the community opportunity to participate in meetings and to hear the board discussions, deliberations, and voting on items, verbal public comments during the virtual meetings will be held to 10 people and approximately 3 minutes each, or 30 minutes in total, for one agenda item. This will allow the public a chance to hear the board's discussions and vote at a reasonable time. Please note that all written public comments submitted that will be read silently during the meeting by the board. So before we go on, I have a quick announcement, and then I'm going to need a little bit of a moment of silence. So it is with a sad and heavy heart that we share the unexpected passing of Zachary Didier, an RUSD student who attended Whitney High School and was a member of the Rocklin community. He was a beloved member of our RUSD family and was a straight A student and active in track and field, theater arts, and the string orchestra, and took numerous AP classes. Before we continue tonight's meeting, please join me in a brief moment of silence to honor his memory. Zach will be dearly missed. Circumstances surrounding his passing are not related to COVID. We will continue to have staff available to meet with and follow up with any students or staff that may be struggling. Please keep the Didier family, friends, and classmates in your thoughts, hearts, and prayers during this time. Board Clerk, will you please read the actions taken in closed session?
In closed session, the board voted to approve Sandeep Dosanjh for the position of Communications and Community Engagement. The vote was unanimous.
Tonight we have Kaylee Hamilton from Whitney High School as our student board member. Kaylee, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
If everyone could please stand. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Now moving on to COVID-19 presentation and update by Superintendent Stock.
President Counter, trustees, I am before you with, I've lost count of the number of COVID reports I've made since this pandemic started in our country and in our local community. But here with tonight's update, again, I want to just remind the board that of our current context, which again, we are in unprecedented situations as we're simultaneously grappling with public health pandemic and budget reductions. Our public health guidance and government orders are constantly changing, as example of January's 15th new guidance on schools that was put out by the California Department of Public Health. And as a key, as adaptability and flexibility is continuing to be essential, and we want to thank our families, our students, our teachers, everyone that works in our schools for their continued flexibility as we implemented yesterday our AM/PM schedule K-12. And so we know that that's critical, and we appreciate their adaptability and flexibility, and it will be essential as we continue to navigate this pandemic. We've always, as our board has kept in their minds, our students and staff, and really working to balance the physical safety, student learning, and social, emotional, mental health needs of all of our students and staff throughout the decisions and how we navigate this pandemic. And just to now like to just update on our RUSD COVID data. Again, this is all reported on our dashboard each Monday, and we have all the data there since we've been reporting it out this school year. And as you can see, for the last 2 weeks, we did experience in our district increased numbers of symptomatic positivity and exposure to positive cases coming back from the winter holidays that was similar to what occurred in our community. But you can see last week's data that while the numbers were higher than previously in the school year, they did decline over the previous week, and we're hopeful that they'll continue to decline. But I would draw attention that we still have, a significant number of students that are quarantined due to being symptomatic or exposed to positive cases. And so, a key focus of ours, and we know it is of all of our teachers and everyone else, is to how do we improve that learning outcome and connection for students while they're quarantined, because we still have significant numbers that are. And so we acknowledge that that's work that we all share in wanting to do, and this data supports that urgent need as well. The school-by-school data that we do report as well over a 2-week period, you can see our schools. Our Whitney High School has our highest rate of positivity in the last 14 days, and you can see the data there, and that we, if you look across, there's a variance in the amount of positivity. Some schools at 0, and other schools that are showing that there was some positivity. The California county tier system. So California was under this stay-home order. As you recall, we're all in 5 regions, and we were shut down in a stay-home order. It didn't affect schools, but in general, we all now returned in our Sacramento region to the county tier system. So if you're confused, it's okay, because I think everyone in California possibly is by this, but our current status is in the purple widespread category. So, and that does have impacts, for example, in youth sports guidance. Certain sports are allowed in activities depending on where you're at in that color guidance. However, this tier system of purple, red, orange, and yellow has no impact on us being open or closing for schools, because we've been offering in-person instruction prior to this going into effect. And then, again, local and state public health officials have continued to determine that school reopening is not contributing to disease spread in the community. However, we are finding that increased cases are linked to family gatherings and large gatherings, that we see that there's minimal spread within our schools, but it's activities occurring outside the schools that impact our students and staff. And again, it's just important for us all to remember that following the public health regulations, being mindful of our actions, continue to have an ability on us keeping our campuses open and our students on campus. So it's still important, even though we know there's a vaccine that's starting to be distributed, and we are hopeful, especially with the wonderful spring weather we had last weekend. We can all feel that. It's still important to do all those measures, because it does determine, again, our kids and our staff on campus and our schools staying open. Just an update on local school districts, kind of a look around Placer County. Of course, our current status is we started an AM/PM schedule K-12, 5 days a week with students on campus on yesterday, and our students have all had the opportunity for in-person learning since September 21st. And then, of course, the board, based on the board's decision at the last meeting, all students will be on campus full-time on April 6th or earlier when Placer County is in the orange tier. I'm not going to go through each district. I'll just note a few changes since the last time I updated this, December 14th. Placer Union High School, they paused their hybrid model and remain in distance learning at this time, as reported. They currently are still in distance learning. Roseville Joint High School District did return with all students on campus 5 days a week in a modified schedule, January 5th. However, Roseville High School returned to distance learning for a few weeks. They'll come back, their plan is to come back in person on January 25th. And the reason why they paused to distance learning was not the number of cases in the school, but it was they had a significant number of staff quarantined, and they wouldn't have substitutes to operate the school. So that's an update. And then you can see, looking through these, that various schools are kind of undetermined, or districts are, when their next potential move might be. And I think that's due to some of the guidance that just came out, and folks working to process that, understand that guidance, and as we all are doing. The next piece, we're very excited to update you on our surveillance testing, and want to really give Dr. McDonald who oversees, part of his duties when we organize ed services, he oversees health services this year. And our nursing team, which has been phenomenal with, as well. And so we have worked hard beyond having the surveillance testing that's open to all school employees through a partnership through the Placer County Office of Education and the Placer County Public Health that we have available even in Rocklin over at CV Center. And also our employees have testing available through their own medical providers. We have partnered with Valencia Labs to provide testing on a regular basis at our school sites and our work sites. And that's to make it convenient for employees that want to have that regular surveillance testing. And we did our first school January 15th, last Friday. And you can see, if you have really good vision, the schedule on the right-hand side that shows that we have a rotation that we're basically at each site, work site, every 4 weeks. That's our initial rotation. Dr. McDonald assures me as we get our efficiency down in the process that we should be able to shorten that time frame. The other fact that we're noticing is not every employee wants to take advantage of the surveillance testing. It is optional. So as we really look to understand the numbers of employees that want to take advantage of that, get our efficiencies, we're confident we can shorten this cycle down. And the district did use some of our funding from state and federal government to hire some additional personnel to help with this testing cycle. And then we're working to have to pay some of the cost of transporting the specimens back and forth. And again, we encourage employees that want to take advantage of this to do so. Also noted that the surveillance testing is available through Placer County sites. So if you want to have a test and it's not within your time frame at your school, you can still access it there. So again, excited to have more testing available and more convenient. And the turnaround time is 24 to 48 hours on that. And so we're again, excited to update the board around our continued efforts to improve testing for our employees. On the vaccines, wanted to just give an update. We know that the vaccination and the rate of vaccination has been a conversation throughout the state and nation as we all eagerly await the opportunity to have a vaccination. Just a quick update, in Placer County, we're in phase 1A. That is really healthcare workers, long-term care residents, and in phase 1B includes individuals 65 and older, and that's also where you also have educators and others. And of course, the governor announced that age 65 and older would be eligible for the vaccine, and that frankly has caused a bit of just angst in a sense that the levels of vaccine have not been as available as everyone would want. So what we share on the vaccine today is literally what we know today. This information is changing as we know that manufacturers of it are working to get more out. The supply system is changing, so we're just giving you today's update. And the math on that for Placer County is we have 80,000 residents in this county 65 or older. Not all of them will want the vaccine, but some will. Currently, our county is receiving about 5,000 doses a week. And again, they don't know week to week what their rate will be. And then education and child care workers, including our teachers and staff, are in phase 1B following the age 65 and older group. So we're glad that they've prioritized educators. We agree with that. They need to be near the front of the line. They're serving our kids, and we want that to be there. But we do not have a specific start date yet for when education workers will be given the green light to receive the vaccination. We also know the county is working extremely hard to get this infrastructure up. They're partnering with community partners. And what we will benefit from as educators is as they get this ramped up for other tiers, then that infrastructure is in place for when they do come to educators. So we do know they're working hard. We have offered, superintendents in the county, working with the County Office of Education, have offered to partner with our Placer County Public Health to help them expedite the vaccination process for educators when it becomes our turn. We're more than willing to work with them to do whatever we can to make that happen as fast as we can for our educators. And so we did have one group of our educators or our staff vaccinated. Our health services personnel who work in our health offices, they were eligible as health workers, and some of them have received the vaccination already. So we're excited about that. There has been, I wanted to put this next slide in to kind of clarify, who provides public guidance. And this is a very simple chart, but we know that there's a lot of guidance, a lot of documents floating around. And so you'll notice on the far right in the dashed box is the Centers for Disease Control, CDC. They're out there on that side because they have all kinds of information they put out, but we're not legally required to follow that information, that guidance, unless the California Department of Public Health or our local public health office directs us to. So it's there. We know a lot of people hear about CDC guidance, but that guidance is not binding on us unless our state authorities choose to make it so. And so in a local school district like Rocklin Unified, we have two sources of public health guidance. And this guidance isn't optional. This guidance really, unless they say it's optional, it really is the legal requirement we're required to follow. So the California Department of Public Health, CDPH, issues guidance. For example, the January 15th guidance that we received on school reopening. That guidance we're required to follow. And then also the Placer County Public Health officer can issue additional guidance if they choose to do so. However, I will say our Placer County Public Health folks have been phenomenal partners with us, and they have really worked to not add additional restrictions, but they've really worked hard to help us clarify and understand the guidance we receive. So I can't say enough about how pleased we are. I have the opportunity with other superintendents to weekly have conversations with the Placer County Public Health Officer and the team to ask questions, get clarification. And that access is, I will tell you, unprecedented by many of my colleagues throughout the state to have that level of access. So really, when we get that guidance, that really explains who gives it to us, and whether it's optional or not determines if the guidance says it is. So turning to that, we did get new guidance, all 54 pages, and it is available to the public at the CDPH website. And I believe we linked it out in our message that we sent to families on Friday. And so there's 54 pages, but I'm going to just choose to talk about a few of the items here. And just we are continuing to go dig through that guidance. We are continuing to look at making modifications as needed, and we're continuing to collaborate, negotiate with our labor partners around that guidance as needed as well, too. But a few things I want to highlight. Face coverings are required for all students unless exempted by a medical provider. That the change is students at TK second grade, it was not required. It is now. We shared that with our families Friday, and we have face coverings at schools if students need them. And so we are implementing that guidance immediately because we had the resources to do so, and it was very clear. Another change is the prior guidance had said they recommended 6 feet of space between students when practicable. The new guidance says 4 feet of space is required between student chairs. It's not when practicable, it's 4 feet of students required between student chairs. We believe our hybrid model, we meet that guidance, and we'll be working to, again, look through that guidance as we think about our next upcoming switch. And then there's been a lot of questions in the community around when a student's exposed to a COVID positive case, and I'll look for Dr. McDonald to make sure I get these facts right and correct me if I misstate them, is that if a student is, then there's a 10 to 14 day quarantining range that's listed. That's caused a lot of confusion in our community, and it's caused some confusion because CDC, remember in the dotted box that is optional, has stated 10 days. California Department of Public Health has said it's a 10 to 14 day quarantine period if you maintain 6 feet of distance at all times for that student when they return to school on day 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The issue is we can't guarantee that 6 feet of distance when a student's back at school at all times. And so the guidance has that in there. It links to the CDPH guidance. We today, as superintendents, talked to the Placer County Public Health team, asked for clarification, and they, unfortunately, we would like students back at 10 days, but they affirm that we have to meet that 6 foot at all times spacing for students if they come back earlier than 14 days. So they'll be updating their public FAQs on that, but we were disappointed, but that is the guidance and clarification we received. And so, like I said, there's more in the guidance. We'll be working to dig through that and to begin making adjustments as needed as we do each time we get new guidance. The other kind of piece is updated you on since we've last were meeting in December was the governor on December 30th made a Safe Schools for All proposal. And this is his attempt to encourage schools to come back to in-person learning. Clearly, he has not been paying attention to Placer County because most of us have been back in-person learning. And we appreciate the governor wanting to put some funds there because we want to take advantage of those if possible. But what I need to remind our community is this is a proposal. This is not the law. This has not been enacted. The state legislature right now is considering the proposal. They've held some hearings on it, but it's not been approved. So there is not a program to apply for. There is not a form that we can go fill out. This is his proposal to the legislature. It is not required to open schools, and the funding he provides is proposed to be $450 per student if all the criteria is met and you meet the timeline. The problem is, we appreciate the governor acknowledging we need more funding to implement everything related to the COVID pandemic, and especially learning loss. His funding is woefully inadequate to meet this. Just an example of this is if we were to meet the testing requirements that he puts in this safe reopening, we would expend all the estimated funding in 6 to 8 weeks. So if we went and applied for the money, said we'd meet the requirements, we ran out of the funding in 6 to 8 weeks. And we'd have to hire estimated 25 to 27 more employees to do testing of every student, every staff, every week. We are happy to do more testing when there's funding for it and there's lab capacity to do so, but we currently meet the testing cadence needed under the CDPH guidance that came out. And then also the other piece is, we think the governor, based on the vaccine update I just gave you, needs to put more emphasis on vaccinations than on testing. His proposal puts more emphasis on testing than vaccination, and we think that he needs to do both, but really emphasize that vaccination piece and help us with that. So we, again, are thrilled the governor understands that there needs to be more funding. This is a proposal. We don't know what the final form will be. We will continue to monitor it, and if there's any way for us to partner to work together to bring in more funding for our district to address these needs, we will, but this is right now a proposal. We continue to plan in a dynamic environment, and I think this is more so than ever. Again, as public health orders and everything in guidance, we will revise. Additional actions will be needed as we modify, and given these unprecedented times, clearly this year has shown no plan is final. And so with that, trustees, our next steps will be to continue to implement and improve and adjust our AM/PM model. We know, like anything, when we implement it, that at time we'll make these tweaks and adjustments as we get feedback. We will continue to improve efforts to address learning and loss and social emotional needs of our students. We will continue to review this guidance and make necessary adjustments, communicate to our stakeholders, collaborate with our labor partners, and most importantly, learn and adapt to improve. So with that, trustees, that is my January 20th, 2021 first COVID update of the year, and I would hope to be, we don't do COVID updates next January.
All right. Are there any board comments or questions? All right, seeing none. Are there any verbal or public comments?
President Counter, there is one request for comment. Jeffrey Wax. Jeffrey, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jeffrey.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate this opportunity. I'm a Rocklin resident. I have a young child that attends a Rocklin elementary school. After watching the previous board meeting, which lasted many hours into the night, I have no doubt as to the commitment of this board. But I question the wisdom of changing from the former hybrid schedule to this new AM/PM schedule. My quick conversation here, I guess it's 3 minutes, applies to our elementary school. Comparing the former hybrid schedule to the new AM/PM schedule, the total school hours over a week, in my estimates, are about the same. But the new AM/PM schedule, there's a serious loss. The kids lose this child-to-child interaction. With with the AM PM schedule, you've eliminated lunch and playground or recess. This loss of child-to-child interaction is huge. I'm no psychologist, but at this school age, the development of social skills is as important as in-class time. For kids, the social interactions establish foundational skills, how to cooperate, how to manage conflict. It's where they develop practices for healthy relationships. You know, I ask you to look at our Rocklin schools and their stated vision for social development. Valley View, for example, lists 4 visions, one of them being social and emotional development. Rocklin Elementary School has an acronym PAUSE. I ask you, did you, the board, collect enough thoughts from our teachers, those that know best? I'm confident that these teachers will say eliminating lunch and recess is a consequential loss. And here's my final point. During this pandemic, we've all been talking about loss of interaction with friends, with people we know, but now, with this AM PM schedule, the children also lose this interaction. We want all of our kids back, all of us do, 5 days a week, but not with this short 2.5-hour day where they lose this interaction at lunch and recess. Now, I don't know if you can back out of this AM PM schedule, but please consider doing it sooner than later, or at least come up with a way where our children can have this essential daily interaction with more than just family. Thank you. I'm finished speaking.
Thank you.
President Counter, we have 2 more people who would like to speak. First up is Casey Corliss. Casey, can you hear us?
Hi. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and I appreciate the COVID update by Superintendent Stock, so thank you for that. I have students at Whitney High School, and over the last 5 school days, I've gotten an email every single day of multiple students being affected. So as I think about the vote you made in December to return to 100% in-person instruction with 100% of the students on campus starting April 9th or sooner, I urge you to reconsider that plan, not necessarily today, but you need to be fluid in that plan. To echo Mr. Wax's comments, we all want our kids back to school like normal, 5 days a week with all their friends. But now's not the time to do that and to blindly march forward towards that April 9th deadline or sooner, as you all seem to be so hell-bent on getting our kids back in school as soon as possible, like normal, regardless of the COVID numbers. Now's not the time to do that when we're having multiple students every single day being infected. As you look at and claim that there's a lack of spread or connection to spread within the school, that is bound to change when you fill those classrooms full of 100% capacity of students. You cannot possibly maintain the guidance as outlined with the distance and the mask. You can still do masks, but the distance will be lost. Kids will be at lunch, and 100% of the kids on campus is not going to be a healthy or safe environment necessarily. It may be, but you guys voted last month to just go back April 9th, no matter what, if I understood your vote correctly. And I urge you to reconsider that, remain open to different ideas and plans, and modify those. As Mr. Stock said, no plan is final. I hope that's true with your vote, but your behavior and your comments and your debate with each other at the last board meeting in December was, to be honest, embarrassing. And I hope we don't have to repeat that, but I appreciate all the time you invested and the dialogue you had with each other. And I hope that you will continue that dialogue and remain open to a safe time to go back to school considering the current environment. Because the last thing these kids need is more change. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mike Murray is next. Mr. Murray?
I wanted to start by thanking you for the discussion and debate you had at the meeting. I thought that was great transparency and I appreciate it. I also want to thank you for taking a step towards normalcy. My daughter just went to school on a Tuesday for the first time in 10 months. She was extremely grateful for being able to go to school and she's very grateful to be able to go to school every single day. She likes to see her friends every day. She's also grateful that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and can't thank you enough for having that April deadline for that. As for last meeting, I do have some concerns. With COVID, meetings are a little bit different. Completely understand that. I have some questions about procedure and public comment for starters. I hope we can voice our opinions in person soon. Sending comments in and doing it over Zoom is really not the intent of public comment. Elected officials should have to hear us and stand face to face with us, the people that are being affected by your decisions. With that, there is very limited amount of space for public comment last meeting. One person decided to jump the line and speak of an agenda item off in non-agenda time. Teresa was out of line in doing that, and hopefully that will not happen again, just for fairness of public comment. The lack of public comment adequacy brings me back a few years to when one previous board member was complaining about public comment and having to listen to it. The following semester enrollment dropped drastically. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. Hopefully we do get to make that connection back with the board soon. The public comment should also, coming from the public, should be just as strong as union bosses. I understand that the union boss has a seat at the table for negotiations for teacher contracts, but what left a bad taste in my mouth and many parents' mouths last meeting was the way it was conducted. The bringing in the self-described union activists to speak over Zoom to you guys. The union activist is from out of the area, and he's not qualified to speak on the science or to give you a lecture on things that are happening here in our county, in our city, in our town. Just because a union boss may feel like this guy's a big deal, he has no children in our district, he does not live here, he is no scientific expert, and his voice should not be more prominent than any of our public comment. I would also ask that guests of the union be limited to the same 3 minutes we are. Speaking on procedure, I'd also like that the union boss not be allowed to come back up and rebut what the public has said by reiterating his comments. I have other procedural questions I wanted to ask about having more frequent meetings to hopefully get our kids back to school full-time quicker, but I'll save that for next time. I just wanted to say thank you overall for making the first step towards normalcy. You did this while keeping the class sizes small and keeping things safe. So I think a lot of people left upset from that, but when you really stop to think about it, you guys brought everybody back to school every single day while keeping things safe. And I wanted to thank you for the work that you did last month. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
There are no more comments, President Counter.
All right. Thank you. I didn't see any written comments on the notes, so nothing to pause and read. All right. So we'll go from comments to comments here. So moving to the public comment on non-agenda items. This agenda item is included to give anyone in attendance an opportunity to ask questions or discuss non-agenda items with the board. The board is not permitted to deliberate or take action on non-agenda items, but may refer the matter to staff members for follow-up. A complaint about a specific employee or the district shall be made to the employee's immediate supervisor or the principal as required by Administrative Regulation 1312.1. Guidelines for submitting public comments are available under Agenda Item 2.1. The public may submit a verbal comment via live Zoom or a written public comment. There's a 3-minute time limit. Written public comments will not be read aloud during the meeting, although the board will pause to read any written public comments during the meeting. So I guess coming back, do we have any non-agenda public comments?
There are no non-agenda public comment requests at this time.
All right. Huh? And nothing on the, all right. Excellent. Moving through that. We will now welcome Chuck Haddix, the CSEA president. I think he's via Zoom for the CSEA report. Welcome, Chuck.
Good evening, President Counter, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Stock. Can everybody hear me well?
Yes, we can, Chuck.
Okay, great. I realize that our supervisors and the board don't recognize the fact that all of our classified departments have been stretched thin having to work out of our classifications to fill the needs in other departments and need more help. The reason that you don't recognize the fact that we need to hire more people is because of the fantastic job classified staff has been doing to fill the needs in other departments. So at first glance of it all, everything looks like it is running like a well-built engine, as it should. But it runs well because we still have classified working out of their job descriptions to get the jobs done. I want to take the time to say thank you to all the classified and certified staff for doing such a fantastic job for holding the district together in a time of crisis. You all are awesome, without a doubt. Now we are a little beyond the halfway point, and still the classified groups are working out of class to make it work. But the backlash to having to run a district like this has taken its toll on members. People are tired of working out of class and being in need of more people to help all the time because they are shorthanded. Grounds employees were brought in to help vacuum rooms in the morning for an hour and a half or so, then come back in the afternoon to help wipe down rooms for another hour. And once again, we make it work because we have to. But now it's taking up to 2.5 to 4 hours of the grounds department's day. Some of that time goes to preparing for the day. Some goes to drive time. It matters where they go and what they have to do next, and now vacuum and wipe classrooms down. In the nutrition department, their hours were moved so they can get off at 3:30 p.m. so they can make sure that all students get a breakfast and lunch in their hands. And these are the same employees that had to go through the summer and serve lunches and breakfast outside in tents as families drove up to get what their child or children needed. So they served food throughout the summer into the school year. Even now you think they don't need help because they are doing such a great job, but they do. Some of these employees in the nutrition department, custodial, grounds, and maintenance have told me that they've had to work not only out of their classifications, but they've had to work through their breaks and sometimes only able to grab a few bites of their lunches to meet up with the demand to get the jobs done. Because we are so short-handed. As for the majority of these people that are giving up 15-minute breaks and 30-minute lunches to meet the needs to do the jobs, they don't want to come forward because they say they don't want no trouble. I will tell you, even myself has had to work through my breaks and some lunches, but you see that on my time card. You see it on other time cards too, I'm sure. But for the rest of the people that you don't see them claiming that they had to work through their breaks or through their lunches in order to get done with their duties, a good majority of people don't want to come out and admit that they work like this and they need more help. But for those people, I am here to tell you that it's a fact, that it's happening, and I am their voice for this as well. This, I remind you, is a grievable offense to our Articles 5.4 and 5.5. All that we ask is to take us seriously. We need help in many departments, not just moving us around to fill the needs, because we are all getting pretty worn out having to do other jobs and our own. You as the board wanted the schools open and now you got it. But take into consideration, going back to when all this started to now, everyone's effects or everyone's efforts to pull together to take the impossible mission that we had accomplished has been held together with band-aids to do it. Now should be the time to get more staff hired so we don't have to take missed breaks or lunches. We were also told that all breakfasts or we were also told that all breakfast and lunches will all be grab and go, but that was not what happened. 6 tables are being put down at Sierra View. 6 are also being set down at my site at Rocklin Elementary, 11 at Sunset Ranch, and 18 of them at Cobblestone. And from what I understand, that's all their tables. Holy cow, that's a lot of grab and goes that aren't happening. On the other hand, it helps to work with your peers. I've worked it out with the principal to make it a part of my routine so the kids don't have to eat in the cold. But once again, you don't see this part of our jobs. You all thought it would roll out just fine, but we are the ones that make it run smooth, even if we're not getting the help from the district or the board that we all need. Now about PPE. Not the normal mask, gloves stuff, but shoes. We have been asking the district for a shoe allowance of some sort to help out buying the proper shoes to do our job safely, and have been struck down. So now I am bringing it to you, the board. In the CSEA Know Your Rights book, it states, California Labor Code, section 6400, 6401, and 6403. Title 8, California Code of Regulations, section 3380 through 3390. Employees must be provided with appropriate foot protection if there is significant potential exposure to foot injuries, falling objects, crushing or penetrating machinery, or abnormally wet work sites, etc. With that being said, I would like to read to you comments put in one of my work reports. And this work report was just done on 12/18 of last month. We as leads, and excuse me, the writing is really tiny on this. We as leads are going to be doing PM reports, which are preventive maintenance reports for you, those of you that don't know what a PM report is. And some of these reports have to do with cleaning the leaves from the gutters and checking the roofs of the buildings. I have reached out in an email to express the concerns of ice and water on the roofs, making them slippery and dangerous to do these reports. There is really no other way to do this without walking the roofs and walking within inches of the edge of the roofs to clean the gutters too. The use of a ladder is impossible due to the fact that there are planter boxes, shrubs, and trees in the way to do it with a ladder. Also, it would take the job forever to get done. Cal OSHA requirements for working above 6 feet is that a 5-point harness should be worn with a breakaway lanyard with a D-ring on it to hook off onto a railing, which there is no railing. There is safety, or this is a safety issue, not just for my site, but all sites that is required to be taken care of. And then the response that I got back. When doing PM reports or PM inspections and gutter cleaning, all employees shall follow and take full OSHA fall protection precautions. Walking on the icy roof should never be done. The ice should be melted before anyone walks on it. Walking on a wet roof requires wearing appropriate non-slip footwear. When accessing gutters on a power man lift should be used. Or hold on, let me back up and read that again. When accessing gutters, a power man lift should be used. Use of a power lift requires training and certification, which the district is in the process of setting up and providing ASAP. So with that being said, the grounds department has been through the training already, and they have already been told that they are not allowed to wear tennis shoes on the lift as part of the precaution. So needless of that being said, we were brought hard hats. I thought it was obvious that our feet are at the opposite end of our bodies, but okay, Why the hard hats, I asked. We were told that when we are on a lift or going up a ladder into a roof hatch, we are to be wearing a hard hat to protect our heads from the hatch falling on it. But what is to protect us on our feet? None of you has had to go up on a wet, slippery roof to do your job, but we do. So your rooms get heat and gutters are cleaned out and roofs are not leaky. Because a lift can't reach most areas, so now you are walking along a wet, slippery roof next to the edge to do your job. I don't believe that the safety of what Cal OSHA rules you want to go by should be ignored. Safety should be top priority, just like gloves, masks, safety glasses, hard hats, etc. Maintenance, ground, and custodial and nutrition should all have something for their feet. So maintenance, grounds, custodial are pretty easy, but why nutrition also? How many of you on the board has walked into an icy freezer? That floor can be very slippery. So this shoe stipend would go towards the purchase of non-slip shoes for those employees. They can run over $100 a pair. And keep in mind, these people do not get stipends for their education on top of their normal pay. They also don't make more than about 50 to 55,000 a year, tops. Most are at 35 to 40,000 a year, and with taxes and insurance, they see only half of that. So I hope it doesn't take somebody falling by slipping or getting a foot cut off on a lawnmower to convince you of the safety issues being ignored. So tonight, I have brought two grievable situations to you, the board, and I am prepared to start filing grievances, but I believe we can settle this in a more civil manner. But we are all tired of being ignored by the fact that we sometimes work in a dangerous job. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chuck. Just real quick, and we'll go to board comments. Craig, Tony, Barbara, just in relation to all that, I'm assuming we're having conversations, discussions. This isn't a brand new thing, or working through some stuff?
Thanks. Maybe. Is this on? There it is. Hey, Chuck, thanks for sharing with us. What I'd encourage you to do, we actually, I know there's some things in process with Mr. Murphy, who's working on you on some of these items. But in addition, we met last week in negotiations, and what an opportunity for us to, discuss all the concerns that he addressed with the board, because ultimately it's us at the district that will, under the guidance of the board, be working on these situations. So I encourage Chuck to reach out tomorrow. If not, I'll stop by the site and we can start by this process, but be glad to help support what we are able to support.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks, guys. Anything you're good, Craig? I'm assuming all the same, or go ahead, Craig, sorry.
Good evening. You guys hear me? Chuck, thank you for your report, and I do want to tap onto that, and what an outstanding job that all CSEA has done to get us to this point. And it's been a year. I mean, it's been a lot of challenges. We've had to flex and be moving folks around and working out of class, and they've done a great job. If I could just touch on a couple of things regarding staffing. As we rolled out the hybrid back every day schedule that we had, working right now, we knew that there was going to be some concerns with how we're going to do that cleaning in between the transition, the A and PM cohorts. We've been working on building our custodial sub-pool, and we have 5 custodian possibilities right now that are working on getting cleared. Once those folks get on board, we'll have 12 sub in our pool, which will help eliminate the need to have ground staff coming in during the day. But, they've been, fortunate enough, we've been able to rotate our grounds folks in to take care of that need for now. And basically, whatever the needs are on each site, we've had, you know, it's kind of all hands-on to take care of that. So we're hoping by next week, those 5 new hires are cleared. That'll help back off the grounds and the AM PM. We also have our ground staff coming in the morning to help vacuum the floors, and that was a concern as we're doing our spot checks. We're getting some feedback that the floors were not being attended to once a week like we had previously thought we were going to be able to do. The reason for that is our floaters, the 3 floaters that we hired, have now had to go and fill in for full-time spots due to exposure to COVID, sickness, vacation time. So our floaters are now filling in for the full-time folks, and the grounds folks are filling in now to help keep our floors clean. As far as hard hats and safety vests, in order to meet the OSHA requirements, that's an area that our assistant director over at M&O, Brian Grucho, has brought to our attention that hard hats were missing in our warehouse, and so we're able to get the hard hats out there. And now we have vests for our guys to wear, so we're bringing up to the OSHA requirements. And then as far as cleaning the gutters, we had the same concerns too about the load on the custodial staff and taking care of the gutters. It's a past practice that's been in place for years. And as we look deeply into this, we're moving it to the grounds crew, because during the winter time, they're not doing as much mowing and more blowing the leaves than maintenance on the yard. So we now have the grounds crew and custodial staff training for scissor lift training to get certified. And as they get certified, they'll be able to go out there, use the scissor lifts and ladders and clean the gutters, taking that scope of work away from our custodial staff to help alleviate some of their concerns in that area. I think that's all I really have. If you guys have any other questions about that, I just wanted to...
Can you just speak to
yes, sir.
the issue of shoes, which was safety on the roofs?
What's that now?
The idea of safety on the roof, so shoes to help with safety on the roof. You didn't speak to that, so could you speak to that?
Tony spoke to that. They've been working with CSEA and Chuck on the stipend for shoes. We haven't been involved in that.
I got you.
Right.
Okay.
So, as far as who we take up on the roofs and who's doing what scope of work, we're very concerned about, making sure when they have the training for the lifts, if they're up there, they have the correct harnesses. When a lift goes out to a site, it's supposed to have a harness inside the lift. So if you get up and you need to be able to tie off to a location. So we're working through those, specifics and job scope. But reiterate, everyone's working together to get us to this point. So.
Any other board questions, comments?
I just wanted to say, Chuck, thank you for your comments. You're definitely not ignored. We hear you. We just want to encourage you to keep working with Tony and Craig. I feel like our families really do appreciate the extra coming into vacuuming and clean desks, and they will probably, hopefully, be a little more patient with the lawn. We really do appreciate this is a team effort, and we really try to be understanding and good listeners, and so I just want to encourage you and let you know that we do hear you and appreciate it.
All right, great. Thank you, Chuck. Moving now to our employee organization reports. Travis Mojette, our RTPA president, joins us here. Welcome, Travis.
All right, hello, good evening. Happy New Year, everybody. Surprise, COVID didn't go away at the calendar year like we were hoping, I think. So like many of you, like Craig, I want to acknowledge the outstanding work that CSEA does. I know there's a lot of spotlight in certain areas in organizations, but I think we all know who the real backbone and kind of the workhorses are when it comes to organizations, between Brenda carrying the weight of this office for Roger, and no offense to Roger, I think we know what I mean by that, and CSEA out in the field on all of our sites, from our secretaries to our custodial, transportation, the whole crew. So Chuck, you and your team, thank you. You guys are truly appreciated. I do want to kind of carry on some of the concerns that Chuck and CSEA brought forth, and it's just that idea of who's doing what versus who should be doing what. And so Chuck talked about concerns of some of his people doing roles to fill gaps in areas to try to keep schools, as open as possible right now. And the reason I want to bring that up is because there's a fear that it's going to impact the classroom. We spent a lot of time in the last couple of weeks talking about how are we going to make this shift to AM/PM, right? What's going to be the impacts of all those things? And countless times we're hearing, well, aides are going to do that, aides are going to do that, aides are going to do that. Well, that's great and all, but aides actually are there to serve kids and support classrooms, not clean and do all the other things that sometimes are part of the job, but really is not what those people signed up for. And I just think it's something that we need to mention because there's a growing fear that these phenomenal aides that we have and that are very hard to come by are going to leave because they didn't sign up to be custodians and to be food service workers, and they signed up to work with kids in a very direct and educational field. So just want to make sure that that's on the radar, that it's an area that we're continuing to look at and focus on. Because I know many of you, if you've been on our schools, you know how amazing those people are and how vital they are to anything that's going on at any level of classrooms or education. So a couple other areas I want to address. So appreciate superintendents. Like you said, umpteenth update of COVID and report. We've had a lot of those, and they seem to change, and usually by the minute, if not by the second. But just some concerns that come up with that. Every time I hear those updates, I hear it being presented with everything's rosy, unicorns, and rainbows. I don't think that's the case. I think if you talk to the majority of people that are actually out there doing the job in these conditions, they're not going to relay that same message. And I don't know that that's the intent of Superintendent Stock when he delivers that. But a comment of the guidance, right? We talked about their CDC, CDPH, the acronyms, so you get what I'm saying, Placer County, state, right? But the comment of, well, that one's not legally binding. Okay, I get that, but is that one best for kids and best for a safe environment for schools right now, legally binding or not? The other concern I have when we talk about guidance on these things is the number 4 feet of distancing was up on the slides today. That's the floor, that's the bare minimum. Rocklin used to be a district that not only set the ceiling, but shot and strived and didn't accept anything less. But when it comes to safety, I continually hear in conversations that, well, we only have to do 4 feet, or we only have to clean after school, not between cohorts, or we only have to serve lunch or make it available, but we're really not serving lunch, right? So our current model, if you're not familiar, we give kids a frozen lunch for tomorrow at the end of their day. I have huge concerns with that. There are kids in this community that come to school at noon having not eaten all day long, and now aren't going to get any food until they walk out the door at 3 o'clock. And go figure, kids are going to lose, forget, or eat that lunch right then and there, and not have it for the following day like it might be intended for. I think we can do better than that. Again, there's a floor and there's a ceiling, and what are we really striving for? Along with that, if you haven't had a chance to look at the extensive 55-page document, I strongly urge you, because where we're going to focus a lot of our energy is in the page 21 area, when it talks about distancing and safety protocols, because it's not as simple as we don't have to do 4 or 6, we can do 4. There's a lot of additional measures that have to be in place. And frankly, I don't know that we're going to be able to, without an additional huge increase in resources, be able to maintain an AM/PM model with those new now requirements, not suggestions, not advantageous language. And I'm really concerned that we still made the choice to go ahead and jump into AM/PM. I understand the board made that commitment and took that vote, and then the guidance changed, and I think we're all familiar with the goalpost has moved. That's been kind of the growing concern with this from day one. But I think we missed an opportunity to pause, like we saw a lot of districts doing in our report tonight. And Julie, I don't mean to totally put you on the spot, but I believe your district even did some similar pausing or reevaluating, and I'd love to hear your feedback on that when we get a chance. If this isn't the appropriate avenue, then that's okay as well. But I hate to think that February 1, this new guidance is supposed to be in effect, that we jumped through this giant and huge shift into AM/PM, disrupted the lives of literally every family in our district, to possibly have to go back to our prior model, or just a different model again, yet another change of any kind. So I'm concerned that we were a little too eager, and that we jumped the gun. And again, I know we get guidance on Thursday. It's really hard to make a decision for the following, in this case, Tuesday. But is that hard choice then an easier or better hard choice than in 2 weeks from now saying, dang it, we can't keep this going under the new guidance, now we got to go back again. Again, just something I think that we miss an opportunity to continue some conversations. I know we're going to have conversations about it moving forward and see where it goes. And again, optimistic that we don't see a drastic change again, but I just don't see how that's going to be there with knowing that there are limited resources to do all these things. That said, as we all know, we jumped into a new AMPM model that was imposed on the district or the employees of the district starting Tuesday. And I say imposed because we were in conversation, we were in negotiations, like I shared. We spent many days, many hours. You know, Dr. Limoges can vouch for me that we spent a lot of time together. As much as he and I do or don't like each other, you know, we look forward to those bargaining sessions. And more often than not, it is good conversation. It's not always like, Rick, I'll never forget the first day you sitting in that seat where Derek is now and just saying, you know, we're going to have days where we agree or disagree and we like or don't like each other, but, you know, in the end, I think we're in this for the right reasons. And, you know, Tony and I have that relationship. But moving through those negotiations, we kept getting hit with this huge concern about how do we do this? How do we do this better, right? And the big conversation that came up numerous times, which my understanding is, you know, from the concern and pressure of the board, is adding live Zoom to classrooms as a mandate, requiring Zooms in classrooms. And I understand the need there, and Superintendent Stock touched on this with the need or the desire to improve the connection and education for kids when they are out on quarantine, especially knowing that the guidance is pretty black and white now. Quarantine is 14 days. There's really not a lot of wiggle room in there anymore, where, you know, at the last meeting we had heard there might be some changes to lessen that. So I get that. I understand there is a need there, but I don't think that need and the approach for that was the right avenue, because that kind of bound things up. We were moving forward, and I think that's why we're in a position where we did get imposed on, is we had a lot of conversations around improving, you know, things for employees to feel safe and protected at work, improving areas to support kids, right? All these things that we're doing, but it really came down to that snag of Zooming in classrooms, right? For various reasons. There's 1,000 reasons why it's a great idea, and there's 1,000 reasons why there's concern and it's not a great idea. And while we're going through all that conversation, we get new guidance. But the message that comes from that is that we don't care about the guidance. We don't care that you do or don't want to do this, and there's no wiggle room. It was a pretty hard line in the sand. And come Tuesday, here's what's going on, right? And here we are. We're now 2 days into it. And I just want to read a little bit of where people are at, right? Like you guys, I reach out to people pretty regularly, and how are things going? It's only been a day. It's only been 2 days, right? Expecting there's going to be some challenges. There's going to be concern. No surprise there. But the level of challenges and concern, and I'm just going to read a couple quotes. I'm just going to quote them anonymously so nobody feels like they're totally thrown under the bus tonight here as we're live. But if these things don't resonate with you as board members and as leaders of our district, I have grave concern for the future of our district. And I know that you're all better people than this just being in one ear and out the other. But again, so I'm just going to read it and then go into a couple things around this. So question asked by one of our site reps at one of our sites in the district, you know, how are things going, those kinds of things. The response is, there's been a lot of added stress on teachers at our site due to childcare issues, parents and teachers that are parents feeling the same stress. Teachers at my site can see the stress is coming with a change that adds zero additional instructional time. It's a bigger adjustment for a little tangible gain. The stress is real. Teachers are feeling like the board and the districts sees them as widgets, not humans. No concern for humans who have to make the system work with their time, their family as a sacrifice. That's huge. When employees that you represent or that you employ feel that way, if that doesn't resonate and turn on that, like, we got to do better voice in your head, then like I said, I have grave concern. I know that there's a lot of concern around people feeling heard, and that's where this is coming from. And I don't want to step on the toes. Our students have a phenomenal presentation they're going to do with you guys this evening, and a huge shout out to Kaylee and Jordan and everybody that helped them with that, because it is amazing. But it's not just teachers. It's kids, it's parents, it's all the constituents that you guys represent and many of the voters that put you guys in the seats that you're in. And I think when we're hearing it from every side of the conversation, it's time to listen. And again, I know that you're up there. This is not an easy decision to make. This is not, you know, we just woke up on Wednesday morning and decided this thing. But there's a lot of feeling out there that that's how it all went down, and that's why we're in the position we are. So again, just wanted to share some of those concerns and hope that that resonates with you. And not that I'm trying to add to the lack of sleep you're probably already getting with all of the weight on your shoulders as board members and parents and all the other hats that we wear. But this is the kind of stuff that causes me not to lose sleep, right? I got labeled a union boss earlier tonight. I appreciate that. So, but my job is to represent our teachers and be their voice, and in many ways that they can't choose not to be or just aren't able to be. And that's the voice that I'm hearing consistently day in and day out. And it only got louder as we made the shift to AM PM, because all people have seen from the shift was a political agenda checked off a list, no academic gain, but just dishevelment all over the place. So while I know it's not going to be an easy fix, we got to do better. We got to continue to work the problem, as Joe, our great bargaining chair, would say. But we also got to be comfortable in knowing that we made a mistake, and whether we regress or we move forward, that's okay. Either direction, especially in a COVID situation, is an okay place to go if it's really what's best for kids. And that's what we all say we're here. We're here for the betterment of kids and education. And right now, AM PM is not that. You know, my personal opinion, and whether I'm supposed to share that as a union president or not, is that we're in a bad system for education. And not that COVID's a good system of any kind for education, but I think we're in a worse spot than we were last week in a traditional or a previous hybrid model. So I'm going to leave it with that. And like I said, there's other concerns about people wanting to be heard. And we hear from you guys. You're always available. Tiffany, I appreciate you called me just recently. We had a quick conversation. We have time scheduled to have more of that. You know, Rick and I, Derek, we've done that. I still need to work on developing that with both Rochelle and Julie. But again, please hear the information that is coming, not from Travis, but from the teachers in your district, from the classified employees in your district, and then as importantly, if not maybe even more importantly, from the students that are in this district. And I know Kaylee and Jordan are going to do an amazing job when they come up here and share tonight. So that's what I have for tonight. You know, feel free to ask any questions or share any comments.
Have any board comments or questions? Okay. Yeah.
Travis, thank you. You always do a great job, and I appreciate you representing the teachers. I know that's a difficult job. There's a lot of different opinions out there. There's a lot of different feelings and a lot of different beliefs, and it's very difficult to be one person representing all of those. So thank you. I appreciate it. Just to clear up one question that you posed, Loomis, I work in the elementary school district, so the high school district did a pause, but the elementary school district did not. And we're actually in negotiations to move forward based on the new guidelines. So more to come on that once it gets out there publicly. The high school district did a pause because of the 4 feet. They had filled the classrooms, and then the 4 feet came down. And I have heard that they are working on some creative ideas to get all the kids back as soon as possible. So again, more to come. That will be interesting to see how they figure that out. But they are determined to get all of the kids back. I have a great heart for what the teachers are going through. I know the stress level involved in change, and I see it all the time. When a change is coming, the stress level goes up and up and up and up and up until the change happens, and some people almost break by the time the change happens because it is so stressful. And then just like when we went into the original hybrid model, it was extremely stressful. And then once we got used to it, now we miss it. We want to go back to it. But getting to that point was extremely difficult, and working out the kinks is extremely difficult. I'm hoping as we go forward with AMPM that there will be kinks worked out and that things will get better. I still believe very strongly, and I know it's so difficult. Different people come to speak to different people. So the people that come to speak to you are the people who want you to advocate for them. And I think the people who come to speak to us are the people who want us to advocate for them. And I think we hear different sides of the needs out there. I know for me, I'll just speak for myself, though there were many times when we were running for this office that we were together and people were coming to us together, and we heard many, and I hope that people hear this, because it's not been said in this forum, but we heard more than I can count stories of depression and anxiety, and kids who didn't want to get out of bed, and kids who didn't have a reason to get out of bed, and parents begging us to get kids back 5 days so that their kid would have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And I know that's not necessarily what schools are there for, to get kids out of bed in the morning, but it is a big part of the social emotional needs that we try to meet for kids. And I know those aren't the same people that come talk to you, but they are the people, and there were, again, more than I can count, that came to us, parents in distress and tears and agony that their kids were, depression and anxiety was just overwhelming them, and they were giving up. They didn't even want to go to school or care. The apathy was through the roof, and it was hard to not hear them as well. And I know there's a lot of talk of not hearing people, and you mentioned that a couple of times, and I know, again, our students did an absolutely spectacular job, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing their presentation. But I hope that, and Chuck mentioned it too, I hope that people know that just because the way that they wanted wasn't the way that was voted on, doesn't mean they're not heard. We lose sleep. We agonize over these decisions. It's not, as you rightfully said, something that we get up in the morning and just decide. And I'm sad that there are people who might think that, but these decisions are definitely not made lightly. And we hear every voice. We hear the ones that don't like it, believe me. We hear the ones that beg for it. And we hear the ones that don't care. We do hear, and we do appreciate that there are so many different needs out there. And there, no matter what we had voted on, we would have had a third of the population miserable, a third of the population couldn't care one way or the other, and a third of the population happy. I mean, there was no way to go that was going to please everyone. And our main focus was the kids. It was trying to figure out a way to pull them back out of themselves. Being locked in your bedroom for 5 days in a row with no one to talk to, no one to see, no one to check on you was happening. It wasn't happening to the families that were making it work. It was happening in other places, and we had to look at the whole picture. So I want to hear everybody's voice always, and we read every email, and we get every phone call, and we speak to everyone who wants to share. So please, everyone who's listening, know that we are hearing.
You know, I just wanted to take a moment and just say thank you, Travis. It was said earlier that we may agree, we may disagree, but I truly believe every single person in this room is here, not because they woke up this morning and said this would be fun to do. I think they're here because we truly do care about the students, and that means we care about the teachers and the parents and all staff. And so, this is a difficult time. I wish there was one perfect model that rolled out and we could just implement it across the nation. But this is a period of time where we see such division across our nation. We see division in our state. And unfortunately, that trickles down into our county, and unfortunately, it trickles down into our schools and our children. And as much as we try to shield them from that or protect them from that, that's the reality of the life they live in too. And so thank you for commenting about me reaching out, because my heart and my desire really is I want to learn more. I want to hear more. Every email, I have read every single email. I am working hard to get every single email a reply, but every single parent, teacher, classified staff, certificated staff, I want to hear from. But I really want us to work together and give each other the benefit of the doubt that we are listening, we are trying, and every decision we make, there's probably going to be pros and there's definitely going to be cons, and we want to own those and minimize as many cons as possible and celebrate the wins together. And so my desire moving forward is that we can celebrate the wins that we have, and when we have difficult moments, we can talk and we can listen to each other and we can give each other the benefit of the doubt, because I really, truly believe we're all here for the right reason.
All right. So, again, summarizing, don't want to repeat everything. Thank you, Travis, for coming out. Thank you to the folks. Thank you, Chuck. Again, going back a handful of years, the whole idea of this process and putting you guys on the agenda was to have this conversation, to work through it, right? We didn't want to do the, file a note, send me an email, and we'll talk, right? The whole idea is to have this. And I'm hoping, as we've said before, the emails, the text messages, the phone calls, any of us up here, call us up, call each other up, and we can work through stuff that we need to. And again, echoing what Tiffany and Julie said, like, we're here for the kids. We're trying to figure it out. There's no one perfect solution. If there was, it would already be implemented, and we'd be talking about, what spring sports are going to come around the horizon and, what we're looking at for next calendar year and all that kind of stuff. So we are working through it. It's not an easy one. And for every decision that you make, there's negatives and positives to it. And I'm sure as a teacher, you're looking at curriculum and it's like, if I say this, it's not going to work, but I'll touch these kids. But if I do that, then this, you're balancing all that out, right? And same thing up on this level. So continue to work with, continue to keep communication lines going. We'll work through this. Again, I'm hoping that later in this school year, next year, as we move forward, this is one of those big joke things that we're going to talk about. Remember what we did back in the COVID times. But for now, we still got to grind through it. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Let's see here. Kaylee, thank you for being here with us tonight. Will you please share the student representative report?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Here are a few updates from our schools. At Parker Whitney Elementary, they recently held their first annual Panthers Helping Panthers food drive. A total of 1,921 food items were delivered to 20 Panther families to help them over the winter break. Now they're gearing up and preparing for their virtual talent show. At Victory High School, because of the incredible generosity of their parents, teachers, support staff, local organizations, and individual community members, including Trustee Price, the Rocklin Alternative Education Center was able to host its annual Care Closet Holiday Giveaway on December 18th. Donations including clothes, hats, coats, gloves, and jewelry were available for any Victory High or Rocklin Alternative Education student interested or in need. In December, Sunset Ranch Elementary Student Council members or leaders of the PAC held a canned food drive and collected over 2,000 items. With the help of a few of their teachers, they delivered all the groceries to the Salvation Army for distribution to families in need, and their 6th grade class is growing a winter garden. They made and installed mosaic stepping stones and planted a variety of winter crops. Staff and students at Rocklin Elementary are gearing up for their 3rd virtual pause celebration to take place on the 29th. The theme for this month is Work Hard. In addition, the staff and students are excited to participate in the Great Kindness Challenge, set up to take place the 25th through the 29th. And at Whitney High School, we're continuing to spread positivity virtually through our Instagram accounts, What's Up Whitney and X Factor. We're also having raffles every Friday to encourage students to wear maroon. Whoever wears maroon gets a ticket in the morning and then has a chance to win a food prize, because high schoolers love free food. Our leadership class is continuing to do activities, give treats to our teacher and staff Cap Pals, and our leadership executive board is doing monthly email check-ins with our freshmen. And lastly, but not least, Rocklin High School, their leadership class is currently planning out different games and activities they can hold during school to create a fun and engaging atmosphere for the student body while keeping COVID-19 restrictions. And they're continuing to plan ideas out such as spirit days and other creative activities to try and enlighten their students and clubs on their campus are getting started. CSF and many other clubs are starting their clubs and starting to plan activities for this next year. That is all.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Kaylee. Trustees, do you have any comments you'd like to share tonight? Go, we'll start down here.
Thank you, Kaylee. I love hearing those reports. I just have to say I love hearing the creativity of every school site and how, in spite of the many challenges all of us have had, they're finding ways to still have fun, finding ways to celebrate. So thank you, Kaylee, for taking the time to compile that report of all of our schools and share that with us as a board. It's very refreshing to hear. I also just wanted to take a moment just to really personally really stop and just say thank you to our teachers, our staff, our parents, our students. I don't say that lightly. I know that 2020 has been a year of challenges, and as much as I would hope 2021 wouldn't be, I'm sure there will still be challenges ahead of us. But I really do, I mean it when I say every email that comes, I appreciate it. I appreciate the viewpoints, the perspectives that you give that I may never see, will never know unless you reach out to me, so thank you for that. And I did want to highlight for just a quick moment, in spite of the many challenges, I have been so impressed, specifically by the RHS choir. I actually got to hear a few recordings they shared with us, and I was blown away that amidst changing plans through distance learning, hybrid, and now the beginning of an AM/PM model, they put together a presentation and a recording. And it really touched me. It really did move me. And so I wanted to take a minute just to recognize. I didn't let him know ahead of time, but Mr. Sean Spees, I want to say it correctly, Sean Spees, I was so impressed when I heard that. I remember still sitting in my bedroom at home listening, and I just was in awe that in spite of everything, our students came together. They found a way to be flexible and adaptable and still celebrate this season of time. And so I'm excited to see what they and many other of our students do this next term. But I just wanted to give a shout out again to our teachers, our staff. I don't take lightly what you do. I know the decisions we make affect you in ways we may not understand, but I thank you for being flexible, adaptable, and finding ways to celebrate with your students in spite of everything going on.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add that I had the pleasure and privilege of participating in the third annual Placer County MLK Day, unfortunately virtual event this year, but hopefully March next year. In specific, I want to thank Donna Trumbo, Shannon Cantanella, and Twin Armstrong for hosting and making it a really important, memorable event for Rocklin. So appreciate that.
I wanted to comment on that too. You did a great job, Trustee Miller, speaking for a couple minutes, and I was able to just be a small part of that and be one of the judges in the art contest, and it was amazing, the talent. So that was really a great thing to be a part of as well. I wanted to just give a thank you and a shout out to Mr. Flowers and Mr. McDonald this week. Trustee Sadoff and I are part of Leadership Rocklin, just sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, and this week we talked about education, and it was awesome to have the two of you presenting and sharing some of the challenges that COVID has presented to us, but especially focusing on the opportunities and how we've risen to the occasion and done an amazing job. So I was really proud to be part of that and grateful for what you shared. Do we also want to talk right here about our budget meetings that we've had this week? Okay, this is a good time. So I'll do my best to explain what our vision was. This was actually Rick's great idea that we reach out with a lot of budgeting. I'm going to give you a shout out for sure. A lot of budgeting concerns and discussions and issues coming. We decided that we wanted to reach out and hear some more voices and opinions and how our decisions impact you on what your as a community, what your priorities are. And so over the next 10 days, we are meeting each of us with a cabinet member with each school, and we've asked the PTCs if we could use their meeting time to share our presentation and mainly to listen and ask for feedback. And I'll just share my experience last night. I was part of the meeting with Breen. I've got 4 others in the next 6 days. But it was really, really great to see parents there on their own time, sharing what is important to them. And also really good to hear and understand their perception of how much things cost and how things work as we look at, a very complicated budget and how we need to make decisions moving forward. I had 2 pages of notes by the time I was done, and just really grateful for that opportunity and look forward to the rest of those meetings. And also, we would like more people to be there and to participate. And so we need to talk about how we want to best do that. Superintendent Stock, maybe you can share some ideas so that over the next, we've got more meetings. I think our next set is tomorrow night, so they're moving very quickly, and we are on a time schedule. But we do want to include any parents that do want to come in those conversations.
We absolutely, we've held 4 of those, and we have many schools to go. So if you have not heard about these, we know that we've sent out information to all of our families, but if you haven't heard or you didn't sign up and feel it's too late, it is not too late. So we invite you to be a part. It's a Zoom experience because we want to accommodate as many people as we can safely. So if you have any interest at all, you can reach out to your school office for information, or my office as well for information, and we'll connect you to that school. So again, those are available. They're about an hour in length, and really gives an opportunity for you and your neighbors in your community school to share information with our trustees around your priorities. And we encourage you to do that, and we'll be exploring additional opportunities and options to continue to get input. And so again, please, if you've not heard about that, or you missed one and you want to go, or if you missed your school's opportunity, the first 4, let us know. We'll figure out a way to try to involve you somewhere in that process.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, I just wanted to also say how excited I am for our student body representatives and their presentation. I had a chance to speak with them, each of them on the phone individually, and really the example that they are setting about civil discourse and how we respectfully communicate and listen to one another. I'm just really proud of them at their age for their courage and the things that they've been working on. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so, and again, just thank you. Again, similar to Rochelle, I had the budget meetings. It was great in the community just to be a part of those, interact with the folks. Looking over at Dr. McDonald, we had a great time with Cobblestone, so thank you for that. I did also get the same note from the Rocklin Choir. It was neat just to sit down, and you didn't realize, I was gonna open up something, and I thought I was gonna see a bunch of kids, and you just heard a video of them, and it was amazing that they were able to put that together. That was amazing. MLK Day, unfortunately, it was an online event. For those of you who didn't see it, our own Rick Miller got to read part of it. It was amazing. I missed the walk from Springview Park all the way around, which we did last year, so hopefully we can get back to that. And then we'll be hearing from Kaylee and the group later. And again, it's a great thing. Come out and speak. That's always rewarded. Superintendent Stock, I know I jumped to you, but do you have any other comments to share?
Just to echo, the 3rd annual Placer County Martin Luther King event was phenomenal. Appreciate our trustees participating, and also other members of our school community, and then again the deep partnership of the organizers to include our school district, and we know the events like that help bring us together. Also, there was in our community Friday was a local youth let our youth play sports event, and we know that our student athletes really want to get back out on the field, the court, and we encourage the California Department of Public Health to work with CIF to revise their guidance so that we can have our student athletes return sooner and safer than the current guidance allows. We encourage them to work. We look forward to hopefully a revision of that, because we do think it is good for them to be out there, and we want to do so safely, and we think we can as well. But given that we are in purple, we do look forward to next week, I think, Dr. Mr. Flowers, to cross-country starting, and I don't know that we have cornhole, but and golf will be starting. And if we had a snowboarding team, they could start too, but we don't. So golf and cross-country, so it's a start, But we would urge the Department of Public Health and say you have to revise that guidance and get more of our student athletes out there.
Thank you. I'm so glad you brought that up, the Let Them Play rally. We had a really good representation from Rocklin, and there were some parents that were instrumental. I know Tina Watts and Julia Wildenrat, and I apologize for anybody else that I don't know about, but they threw that together on a short notice, and we had Assemblyman Kiley there. Yep, we had student athletes speak, we had coaches speak, and as Rocklin, we were well represented with our athletes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, I was gonna say something about that. It was just really cool to be out there and see everyone. There was hundreds of students all across the district, and it was just good to be there, and everyone in their school colors and seeing the support and everyone working for the same cause. So it was fun.
Excellent. We'll go to item 10.1. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by a motion followed by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of the items unless the Board of Trustees, audience, or staff request a specific item be removed from the consent calendar for a specific discussion and action. Any agenda items removed will be voted on following the motion to approve the consent calendar. Do we have any board members wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action?
I want to remove 10.3.
10.2 or 3?
3.
10.3. 10.3 from Rick. Do we have anyone, I guess, ask the community?
Wait, you know, I did.
I'm going to say this wrong. I just want to make sure.
I apologize. It was 10.13.
10.13, sorry. Okay. So, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items minus 10.13?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All right. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Kaylee Hamilton,
Yes.
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Rick Miller,
Yes.
Rochelle Price,
Yes?
Tiffany Sathoff,
Yes.
Derek Counter.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. So on 10.3, I appreciate it. 10.13, I'll make this quick. I actually pulled this last year. I pulled it again this year in the sense that I appreciate the CSEAs and I appreciate the SARCs, and for those who don't speak educationese, these are individual explanation of what's going on in each one of our campuses. There also are mandated bureaucratic reports that we have to fill out to make the state happy. But as I consistently talk about, is my desire to take bureaucracy and actually make it work for Rocklin. And what I will say is, you know, those of us who live in data, and I know Derek does, variance matters a lot, and we talk a lot at this dais about the district, but the district is made up of schools. And it seems to me we have very little opportunities to actually talk about individual schools and how they're doing. And we know, you know, Sierra has a great IB program. How does that work? You know, that Rocklin is really good at PBIS, right? Or that we have the middle school academies. But understanding, actually teasing out where we're having success, what's working well, and then thinking about that, how it impacts our system, it feels to me that the CSEAs and the SARC is the perfect example once a year to allow us to slow down and actually have some conversation, some data where we could actually create data. I'm not asking for more work from the schools, but some dashboard we could look at to sort of say, where can we find the positive variance out of here, and what do we know about that? And it gives us the great opportunity. So I'd love next year when this comes back to us to have a more robust conversation about what we're learning about the individual successes of each of our schools. And with that, I will move approval of 10.13. What? Yeah.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve 10.13.
So moved.
Moved by Rochelle.
Second.
Seconded by Rick. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Kaylee Hamilton,
Yes.
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Rick Miller,
Yes.
Rochelle Price,
Yes?
Tiffany Sathoff,
Yes.
Derek Counter.
Yes. Motion passes. All right. Now moving on to action items. Mr. Flowers, will you please present action item number 11.1, Declaration of Open Enrollment for Rocklin Unified School District for 2021-2022 school year?
Good evening, trustees. Superintendent Stock. I come before you this evening to talk about open enrollment. Board Policy 5116.1 states that by March 15th of each school year, the district shall establish a list of schools that are open for intra-district enrollment. Educational Services Department has worked closely with the Office of Business and Maintenance and Operations to review the projected enrollments for the 21-22 school year. At this time, staff has ascertained that there is space available at all schools to be declared open, so I come before you this evening to ask that the board take action on declaring all schools open in the Rocklin Unified School District for the 2021-22 school year.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Are there any board comments or questions? Kaylee? Okay. I don't see there's any questions. Are there any verbal or public comment? Don't hear any, and then I don't see any written comments, so we're good. All right. Is there a motion to approve the Is there a motion to approve the declaration of open enrollment for Rocklin Unified School District for the 2021-2022 school year?
So moved.
Okay, moved.
Second.
Seconded. All right. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Flowers. All right. Now moving on to information item number 12.1. Kaylee, we invite you and a fellow student board representative, Jordan Schneider, to present a presentation on hearing the student voice.
Right. Is this on? Can you guys hear us? Okay. All right. Good evening. Oh, wait, you know what? How do you present one? PowerPoint.
I literally have no idea.
We don't use PowerPoint. How do you present? Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's not Google, it doesn't matter. It doesn't count.
Okay.
Okay. So how do you?
Space bar.
Is that with the?
Yeah, you can use that too.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We only use Google Slides in class. All right. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stock, and everyone tuned in on the live. To those of you who do not know me already, my name is Kaylee Hamilton, and this is Jordan Schneider. I've been working alongside him as well as Jordan Overbo, who unfortunately could not be here tonight due to the COVID-19 regulations. On behalf of Jordan Overbo, she urges you all to seriously consider the points made in this presentation and wants you all to know how much work and dedication we put into this. The three of us are all very involved students on our campuses and within the community and wanted to come together and create something for the greater good. After the decision made on the board meeting, on December 14th, there was a wide variety of opinions and thoughts being presented to us, which is why we decided to work together to create the Hear Our Voices movement. As you may have seen, we printed the slides and put them in front of each of you. It might be easier. I mean, I'm a visual learner. I like to have it in front of me, so that is for your guys' convenience.
Alrighty, so for our next slide, we just wanted to put what our main goal through this whole process was. So for our main goal throughout this process was to use the platforms that we have been given in order to use our voices for those who feel overlooked. By creating surveys, taking polls, and comments, we wanted to use the data we were able to gather to show that the decision voted on for the AM/PM schedule was not the majority vote, proving that the community does not feel considered and heard during these major decisions. We want to encourage the school board to reconsider how they approach their final vote and how district-wide data is being obtained. Our main fight is to have an increase in representation and student voice in general within the school board.
Our first step in order to better understand how the community feels about the AM/PM schedule that was voted on was to create a district-wide survey that was then sent out and shared in many different ways. We made it very vague and simple with 3 required questions as well as 1 optional comment section at the end. We then created a post that hundreds of people across the community reposted, sent out to all different groups, encouraging others to fill it out. And within the 3 days, we received 1,426 responses, and 738 comments from students, staff, and parents from all grade levels, as well as community members. It really kind of shocked us at how much it blew up, because we really, it was just the three of us came together and we're like, you know what, like, let's do something, let's just see. And after it was about noon the next day, we were at Jordan's house and we were staring at the computer once we hit 1,000, and we just thought it was so cool that 1,000 people actually took the time to help us out with something. So.
Awesome. So looking at the next slide, it is going to show what our first required question on the survey that we sent out was. So although, like Kaylee just said, this was all started very spontaneously, we could not believe all of the feedback and support that we were immediately given. So for our first question, we decided to put, do you feel your voices are being heard? And it was quite clear by looking at the pie chart that you could see that the majority of the community feels as if their voices are not being heard. Out of the 1,426 responses that we received, there was a total of 9.3% or 132 votes saying that their voices were not being heard, compared to a total of 90.7% or 1,294 people who voted saying that they did not feel like their voices were being considered.
And this was just really kind of shocking to us and very interesting. When we first logged on and saw the majority of red on that pie chart, we just thought it was like fascinating, and immediately knew that we wanted to share with you guys, because this is really important, and obviously we want people to feel heard by what the votes are.
And one thing with this question as well that we just wanted to mention to you guys is that with the question that we provided for this one, it wasn't our intention to start an argument. It was just an intention to get a vote on the community's feelings on how they felt their voices were being heard.
Another main goal of ours was to ensure that all aspects of the community were represented fairly. We wanted to be able to point out the variety of responses that were coming in, and we decided to have the next question ask what everyone's role was within the community. And these were the results. You can see them on the different colors, and we listed them out right there, but it's a lot of numbers, but we really thought it was important that all students, all parents, all staff members, all community members were represented. So there was a total of 859, or 60%, were high school students, 47, or about 3%, were middle school students, 21, or 1%, were even elementary school students, 192, or about 13%, were high school parents, 41, or about 3%, were middle school parents, 114, or 8%, were elementary school parents, 49, or 3%, were high school staff members, 19, or 1%, were middle school staff members, 50, or about 4%, were elementary school staff members, or 34, or 2% were community members. And so we really thought it was crazy the variety we got, and how even though we had just originally posted it on our Instagram accounts, it really got out there, and that was our main goal. We wanted to get everyone's opinions. We wanted to hear from everybody, and we really felt like we accomplished that. Even though the majority were high school students, we still got at least 20 of each. So that was important to us.
And then for our last question, we were asking the community what their preferred learning style is for the return to campus. This question was in order to show how the decision made was going against what the community wanted and needed. When making this question, it again was not our intention to get an argument started or anything. It was just to show what the votes were coming in as for our survey question. So for the results, the data are as follows. There was a total of 1,117, or 78.3% of people wanting to continue in the hybrid path that we were just in. There was a total of 257, or 18% of people who voted to return to school in the 5 days a week early release schedule. And finally, there was a total of 52, or 3.6% of people voting to return in the AM/PM schedule voted on. To summarize these responses, the majority of the community would rather return back to school 5 days normal or continue in the hybrid learning model that has finally become consistent for many people.
And like Jordan said, this wasn't our intent to change the learning style. It was really just to see what the majority wanted and to see how everyone felt about it. And as you guys can see here on the pie chart, it's mostly hybrid, or just continuing as is until we can go back to normal. And so we really thought that was interesting, because that really kind of backs up the other information about not feeling heard. And then, do you want to go on the next one?
Yes.
So at the end of the survey, there was an optional comment section. We kind of originally just put it on there just to give people a chance to express their feelings if they really wanted to, and it actually blew up. were a total of 738 optional responses. These are just a few quotes that we took out, mostly talking about student representation. A few of them said, "The students' voices should be the #1 priority, and I feel as if none of us are being heard. I'm worn out from worrying. I don't feel like I can do anything about it. I've seen so many worried parents, students, and teachers. They should be helping us and hearing us, listening to our voices and trying to make it better and more heard. We need to hear out the students. We need a voice. We are never given a real opportunity to be heard at all. Without input from parents, students, and teachers, there is no way to know what is best for the community." And a couple days ago, as you guys all saw, we emailed you guys a link of all the rest of the comments, and so feel free to send that to whoever. That took us a while to compile, but we didn't edit them. They're not filtered. They're exactly how everyone wrote them because we thought that was really important. And I don't know if you guys took the time to read through them, but between me, Jordan, and Jordan, we read hundreds and hundreds, and it's just so fascinating to actually know like how everyone is feeling. And we'll talk later, but it talks about what Julie was saying earlier: depression, transportation, students worrying about jobs, students who are having to provide for their families as well, being stressed out about that. And it really is just fascinating to hear from all the different levels of students in all different areas of life. And also, I have some note cards right here. We actually held an event, and we had note cards there where people could just shortly write how they feel. So I'll pass these out to you guys later, but if you guys just want to look at those later as well.
Awesome. So for the next slide, we just wanted to, again, give you an overview of kind of how the comments were laying out in the optional comment section. So with the overwhelming amount of thoroughly thought out and heartfelt responses, there was a common trend of the feeling of being ignored and betrayed. The majority of the comments talked about how the community was not feeling represented and making big decisions like these, which is why we are pushing for a change. Consistency was one of the biggest concerns coming along with the change in schedules. Many teenagers felt as if they had just gotten into a routine that was starting to feel normal again, but had it taken away by the vote that showed no benefits. The community feels as if the mind of the board was made before the meeting began, and there was no comment or option that would change it.
So like we already said, there was a ton of comments that were already talking about how people felt as if the board's mind was already made up, and even with the 10 public comments, it still wasn't going to be changed. And obviously that's not what we want people to think, and so that's why we're kind of coming to you guys like, listen, this is how people are feeling, because we're kind of the bridge from students to you guys. And so I really recommend looking at those comments because there are a lot of good and valuable information in them. And then while going through the data and talking to all different peers throughout the community, we were able to gather information on why so many people were not only upset about AM, PM, but just upset about this year in general. People are confused on how this decision was made and how this schedule was supposedly benefiting anyone when the constant response was explaining how it was not convenient for many. Some major concerns were transportation, instructional time, parent and student work schedules, and mental health. Even after voicing their opinions on why AM, PM wasn't going to work, many felt as if their voices were being overlooked and the board's mind was already made up. And like Julie mentioned earlier, and I already said, a really big overarching concern was depression, whether it was from being self-isolated, quarantine, stuff like that, the constant back and forth. It has just increased tremendously, and so I'm really hoping we can work together to find ways to decrease that. I know we're trying to do, I actually forget what they're called, but they're like the social emotional lessons that the high schools are doing. I know a lot of teachers aren't actually doing those, and I think that's already because the 40-minute class periods are so short. That's not their faults at all, but I don't know if there's something that we can work together to do, just because obviously mental health is our #1 priority, and so that's really something we gotta work together on.
And then for this next slide, during this whole experience for Kaylee, myself, and Jordan Overbo, we all came together to kind of just think of what some next steps that could be taken are that could better the student representation. So the ones that we came up, there are a bunch up on the board, but a slight overview. Prior to the voting day of decisions like these, the trustees, we were hoping that the trustees could be more vocal with the student representative and discuss the upcoming meeting.
So this one we kind of came off of because we know like you guys know the agenda ahead before most of the public does, and you guys know like what we're voting on. So I don't know if it'd be possible for you guys to come to us. I know Rochelle called me, Jordan, and it actually like was so nice to know that like she was there. She wanted to hear from us, and so I don't know if that's something that can be continued to do in the future. I don't know how many people you guys can actually talk to before voting, but even if it's like just me and I just like keep it to myself, you don't even have to tell us like what you're leaning towards, just to hear like, obviously because like that wouldn't really be allowed, but just to hear like from us students, because I mean, I know me and Jordan Overbo are very social, and people talk to us, we hear things, and so I don't know if that's something that could happen in the future, but that was just something that was important to us.
And then I think also for Kaylee and I, also being like the student reps, it's kind of our job to talk to the students throughout campus and kind of get a total overview of how people are thinking. And I think one of the main reasons that we put this as one of the options is we're like two people, and we can do as much as we can, but I think it could be very beneficial for the community and the student body if we can work together to brainstorm other ideas to work with student bodies and teachers and staff to kind of get a broader, more specific overview of how people are feeling, whether that be through a survey like what we did or other options, just kind of finding different ways to reach out to more people and get a bigger overview of what people are thinking before decisions are made. And then for the next one, on the student comment section on the agenda, we were hoping that there could be a more specific and permanent place for the student rep to voice their opinions on the upcoming vote, as well as more connection between the Board of Trustees and the student at the meeting. With the student representative title, Kaylee and I often feel as if, although not intentional, we are hoping and know, we feel as if sometimes we can get skipped over and not taken seriously, which we know at the end of the day isn't the intention. We're kind of in like a corner over there, and it's hard to see. But just kind of more like recognition of who's in here and kind of making sure everybody can get a voice is something that we were hoping could be worked on.
And even though, like, I know each of us, we do like the presentation of what's going on the campuses, we could just make it a more permanent thing where we present that and then we can say, you know, I know what we're voting on coming up. I know what we're going to be discussing. This is just what we've gotten so far and just something for you guys to think of before going on. Because, I mean, like Jordan said earlier, I don't know if there's a way we can talk to more about the students prior to voting, because public comment can only be so big, and so if we can have like a couple prior days where we can talk about stuff like that, it would be great.
And then also just kind of as our last point, talking to more students, like I just said. I know being at Rocklin High School, I know at Whitney High School, we've seen district and board people there. I've talked to you before on Rocklin's campus. I've seen you guys there. I'm friends with Andrew. I see him all the time. Just kind of talking to students, and we, as us two, and hopefully students across the campuses, we're more than willing to talk about how we're feeling, and we're more than willing to just kind of express what our concerns are, what our wants are, just kind of that. So I think one thing that we could also work on and hopefully do better is just kind of talking to more students and feeling how they hear in general.
Yeah, like Jordan said, we see you guys with our admin, with our principals. Sometimes you'll come into the classroom and people have no idea who you guys are, but I'm like, I know them. And so while you're there, I mean, like Jordan said, if you pull someone aside during a passing period or something, I mean, most high schoolers just love to chat. They're all about that. And so, I mean, if they're given an opportunity, they would love to. Before major decisions, you guys could take a poll, whether that be a survey or in person, that includes the community as a whole and ensures that everyone on all grade levels and community roles get an opportunity to answer. Many felt that the data being presented in the past was not completely accurate, and many were confused on where it came from. So going off of like surveys that I've been taking in the past, I know there's been some sent out to parents and a couple sent out to students, but I mean, our survey was a big success, and I know if we worked hand in hand, you guys could say, hey, like, we just sent out this survey to students. Here's a graphic if you guys are willing to post it, and we can just send it out to everyone. I know we have leadership group chats, and even in my leadership class, like, if we have something about a Maroon Friday, we send it out to our committees, and everyone just blasts it everywhere. So I know that's something, even if one student passes, like, just skips through it, I know there'd be at least 5 out of that one that was posted that'll take the time to go find the link in their school email, because I mean, you guys have all of our school emails, so we can just blast it out. I mean, what's one more email in there? Our next point is there's no need to rush a decision, especially one that is impacting so many lifestyles. when it comes to time to vote and there's no clear decision and there's lots of controversy, we believe that the best action could be just to wait, come back another day, gather your thoughts, maybe talk to more people, because I mean, I know Jordan, he was there till like 1 in the morning, and I'm sure that's not what you guys wake up and are like, yes, I want to stay till 1 in the morning. So, I mean, obviously we don't know the behind the scenes, we don't know how that would impact everything, but just taking an extra day to gather more information would be very beneficial. And then when making these decisions, just kind of, I know you guys already do it, but just think about the lives of other people in all different social classes, and put yourself in their shoes to see how their life is going to play out in regards to the decision made. I know from this past one, everyone's already adapting, but with AM/PM, there was a lot of stress on work schedules, students who have to help provide for their families. Obviously, we're just mostly like for high schoolers, we just want to like be able to focus on school and sports, but a lot of the time, that's not the case. And so really just like thinking about everyone in all those different scenarios. And at the end of the day, everyone's goal is return to school and normalcy when it's safe and everyone can enjoy themselves. But until then, consistency is key and representation is key as well.
And then through all of this, we just wanted to make it clear that through all of what we've been doing, it has never been our intention to start an argument and only to work alongside you guys to continue to brainstorm different ideas and different ways to make student representation more noticeable and more apparent in board decisions. And like you guys being Board of Trustees, like us being student representatives, it is our goal and our like job to work to be a voice for those who can't and don't have the opportunity. So we just wanted to make sure that you guys were clear that our goal is to work alongside of you guys, not to start an argument. And we just wanted to say thank you guys for your time and thank you for reaching out to us. It was really appreciated, and we are looking forward to hopefully brainstorming ideas with you guys.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just go this side, and it'll be for a while.
Wow. That was so impressive. I want to know your parents. I'm so amazed with the confidence that you came forth with, mostly because what you were presenting was in opposition to the vote that we took. That's not easy to come out in opposition of your colleagues and to say that you disagree with the vote that was taken and the opinions that were expressed. So I want you to know I'll speak for myself. I am so pleased with the work that you did and the time that you put in, and the fact that you came forward with an opposing opinion just increases my respect for you through the roof. And I can't wait to work with you. I can't wait to have these in-depth discussions and exchange phone numbers and get to know you better and hear your opinions. And it sounds like you really are out there trying to listen to students and bring all of that forward. And like I said to Travis, it's very difficult to represent a lot of different voices. I mean, we'd have to have 20 people up here to represent all the different voices. So I appreciate how you went out and tried to hear all of that with an open mind, not knowing what the results were going to be, and being willing to come and present those results no matter what they were, which is the hard part. So thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it and look forward to working with you.
Thank you. And, I mean, like Jordan said earlier, we're just 3 students that wanted to come together and make a change for the future. Obviously, we don't know who the presidents will be in the future, but we were just really hoping that with the 2 of us and Jordan as well, who's secretary for Rocklin, we're just really hoping that people will see what we've done and be encouraged, and presidents in the future be encouraged to work with you guys, not be intimidated by a bunch of board members, but like you said, just see you guys as colleagues and our peers.
Well, I want to add my thanks. I deeply appreciate it. I know you've done a lot of work on this. I particularly want to call out Jordan Obro, because I know she couldn't be here tonight, but did just as much hard work, and she's an amazing person who did a lot on this, so I thank you. So I took some notes, and I have some thoughts, and I'm going to walk you through my thinking. I agreed with some, I didn't agree with some, and I want to sort of talk about where I did and where I didn't. I'd love to talk to you a little bit about that. So the idea of talking to the student rep before, it's a fantastic idea. So let's figure out a way to make that happen. It's a great idea, and we should absolutely do it. The talking to students, I really appreciate you calling that out. I visit schools a lot, and I've certainly talked to students, but I never made a point of it. And that will never happen again. I will make a point of always talking. But it's, really, it's my mistake. I didn't think about it, and I appreciate you raising it, and it's very helpful to raise it, and so thank you. And I will make sure I do that from now on. Where I slightly disagree is two things. One, on the survey sent out to community, I completely agree. You want to have, we need better job of getting voices into the boardroom, and we could do better with that. And partnering with you is a great idea. Particularly the idea of getting student voice is something I think we miss too often. The perhaps slight disagreement is my concern with surveys is the implication that whatever the survey comes back in, that's the way we should vote. And that we're just trying to get a majority of a survey and say that is, and what I think is important is you understand, sitting on this board, there's a lot that goes into making a decision. That is one piece. It's an important piece to understand where our community or where our teachers or where our students feel, but we have to take all the things into consideration and then vote based on what we know to be best, of course. And we come to different conclusions, but we bring all that together. So I completely agree with the survey, but I don't want the implication that says we just want to see if the 50+1% of students say that, we need to make sure we do that.
No, yeah, and I think that's something we definitely, when we met with Superintendent Stock, that's something he mentioned to us as well, and we 100% understand, like, just because a survey says something, that doesn't mean that's automatically going to be the vote. That's just one of the hundreds of things that goes into your vote, and so I think we understand that, and as students understand that, but that was definitely a great
Awesome,
point.
I appreciate it. And I will say that, like, I do think we do a decent job of hearing from teachers and a decent job of hearing from parents. We don't do a good job of hearing from students, so I appreciate you raising that. The final thing, I slightly disagree, then I have a couple questions. I would say, I appreciate your perspective on the idea if it's a hard decision, don't make it. But unfortunately, I would just respectfully disagree. I think that unfortunately, you just have hard decisions that you need to make, and there's times, in that example, we need to make it that night so they could start planning, so the teachers could get ready. And every day we delayed, there was not time to plan and prepare. And at the end of the day, unfortunately in these roles, and in roles, you guys are gonna be on lots of boards in your life, I guarantee it. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions that aren't gonna make people happy, but delaying it actually doesn't make things better. It just causes the pain to go forward. So sometimes once you've gotten all the information, you do kind of just need to make a decision. So
Yeah,
appreciate it, but
100%. Totally.
no, and I want to be respectful of you. Put it down. I want to have that comment. So
Yeah,
Thank you.
That
We
was
understand
definitely
that.
one of the things too we put down. We're like, well, like I don't know if this could happen, but might as well put it out there.
appreciate that, totally.
Yeah.
So then the final two questions I have for you, you actually, Jordan, you answered the student side. I wasn't clear. The other question I have for you that is kind of off this, but I'm going to ask for student voice now. So one thing we're talking a lot about is quarantine days and our concern around what's happening in the quarantine days. And you heard Travis talk a little bit about that. We're having long conversations about it, something that worries us greatly. What do you know about, have either of you been quarantined? What are you hearing, what do you know about experiences for students that have been quarantined?
Yeah, so actually, it's actually funny because I remember at one meeting, Mr. Counter was talking about how if you have a migraine, then you're automatically a symptom and you're out. And so we were talking about that, and then a week later, I actually got a migraine and was out for 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
I mean, we put it out there and it happened. And so I have migraine problems all the time, and so it wasn't COVID, but since that is a symptom, I got quarantined. And it was easier for me because it was at the start of hybrid, so most things were still on like distance learning in a way, and so everyone was still kind of transferring over to the hybrid style. And so for me, it was pretty easy because everything was on Schoology. It was online. There was the Zoom check-ins on the every other day, the asynchronous days, and but now that everything's AM PM 5 days a week, there isn't that much that's on Schoology now. There aren't the check-in Zooms for, even though they were just for attendance. At least at Whitney, it was still a way that you could contact your teacher with questions that wasn't email. And a lot of my friends were actually out last week because of COVID, and a few of them I was talking to, it really just varies teacher to teacher whether or not it's on Schoology or not. And so I know this is something Mr. Mojet always mentions, and as students we say this too, but really working on the live Zooms in class, I know that's something we've been challenged with, but we keep talking about it, but that is something we really got to come down and talk about and do, because some of our family friends, they were also quarantined, and it really is a stress being in. And now we're starting a new semester. Everyone's kind of starting the new units. You don't really know what you're learning, and so trying to have this whole new class now that you've never been in, but you're quarantined, like it is really challenging. And AM, PM, teachers aren't free to Zoom at intervention. We don't have that anymore. They're not free till 3 p.m., but we know they have kids. They have sports and practices they're coaching and stuff, and so setting up a time with students now is a challenge, and it is hard. So that's at least from my perspective.
Thank you.
So fortunately, I have not had to quarantine for COVID. Knock
Right.
on wood. But I am in a friend group of 6 people, and myself as well as one other person. We're the only 2 out of our 6 that didn't have to quarantine. So 4 out of the 6 of our group did. And the 4 of them, I think it was a common factor that at the point where they got quarantined, it was more confusing and more difficult at that point to make up the work and do all of the stuff that they were supposed to be doing in class and on their off days to do it all by themselves at home. And I know some students have the opportunity, and some, I know Jordan Overbo talked about it in her math class. Her math teacher did a Zoom where you could go on it optionally, but you had the opportunity to go on it and kind of talk to your teacher through Zoom and kind of get help and information on what the units that you're missing are doing. But I know for Jordan, it seems like it worked out, but I know for the friends that I have in my friend group, it was more difficult just to kind of make up the work, and it was more of a feeling of figuring it out on themselves rather than getting the help on how to do it correctly.
Yeah, it's a lot of independent work right now and kind of wishing the best and working on your own. I mean, you can email your teachers, but I think it was Tiffany that said you get so many emails and putting a response to each of those is just super challenging. And so luckily for us, I mean, we're in high school a lot, like we're all seniors, the people that we've really been talking to a lot. And so we've been through this. We kind of know, like, email your teacher, do as best you can, and then when you get back, go from there. But I mean, thinking about middle schoolers, like my little brother's in 5th grade, and if he was in this situation, like, I mean, my parents and my sister and I can only do so much to help him, but it's really been a struggle for a lot of students who have been either self-isolated from like their families alone. That's happened to a few of my friends where they've tested positive, but their family members didn't, so they're just all on their own. I mean, parents can help a lot in these situations, and so it's really been hard, the independent work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Deeply appreciate it. Great work.
I'd like to just echo again, thank you, Kaylee, Jordan, and Jordan who couldn't be here tonight. This is a lot of work. And I so appreciate you taking the opportunity to email us, to talk with us, to share and present. Echoing a little bit of what Rick said, there's some areas we can get better. And getting out and talking to students when we're on campus, I love that. We should be doing that. And so I wrote down actually a lot of the ideas that you said, because I think these are things that we really do, I know I do, and I would believe our board wants to really brainstorm on. And so I even love this opportunity to collaborate right now, like even just to answer the questions that Trustee Rick proposed to you. I loved being able to hear your responses, students, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're living every day. So actually, Superintendent Stock, I would like to request to see if we could set up a follow-up meeting. Because I can throw out ideas in response to this, but I want to make sure they're ideas that really meet your need. As I hear you speaking, I'm thinking, yeah, I'd love to. Maybe I can come be at a lunch once a month or meet with the representative once a month. But I really want to hear from you. Would that achieve what you're looking for? So could we set up a follow-up meeting? I'm thinking possibly the 2 of you, Superintendent Stock, and maybe 1 or 2 board members, depending on what we can achieve. But really do that before our next board meeting so we can sit down, brainstorm, and actually come up with solutions that we can implement immediately.
Trustee Sanoff, we absolutely can do that if the board chooses to kind of, select a kind of an ad hoc subcommittee to work with myself and our student trustees to kind of further the conversation, and then the option could be then, jointly reporting out on what some of those next steps are. So that can be arranged, and as you know, the Brown Act, we can have two of you in that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds good with me, good with him. I'm the kind of person where I'm like, let's not just talk about it, like, let's do something, let's make a change. And so I think that sounds like a great idea.
And I think that'll really help with kind of what our main goal is just, again, we're 2 people, but we can talk to people, we can get people to talk to people, and I think that'll be like a good first step in figuring out what we need to do to increase student representation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and like we said in a presentation, we have these platforms as ASB presidents where people look up to us. We have all different groups that we're in, and so I feel like talking to them, reporting back to you guys, that'll really just be beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, and I think this isn't just a COVID response thing. I think this is moving forward years and years. And so I think you guys are actually, this is a monumental moment. I saw Trustee Price over here taking a photo, and I want a copy of that. Because I think this is what I have always loved about Rocklin, is that in many ways we do pave the way. And I think right now we're paving the way. We're showing that that boards and our students can work together. And so I would like to officially say that I would love to sit on that committee, that follow-up meeting, if there's a second board member that would like to join me.
Yeah, that's a hard one,
Well,
because everyone,
you know,
you may have to flip a coin.
well, I'll let the board decide, and I'll be happy to be there.
Rochambeau.
Yeah, right, Rochambeau. Pick a number. You know, how I feel. You guys are awesome. I did take a picture for each of your moms. Just really proud of you and appreciate the time that you put into this. Also wanted to clarify that we don't actually get the agenda days, hours, weeks before anybody else. We get the agenda the same time that the public gets it, which is Friday afternoons, and everybody has access to that at the same time it's posted on our website. Also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on the agenda every time when it says comments from student representative, we so appreciate the report that you read, but also that is your time. That is your moment to share really whatever you want. And so take that opportunity. And we do want to hear from you and what's on your mind and what's going on. And then, as you know, and you're welcome to call any of us in between meetings. We would love to chat, and we welcome those conversations. So let's see. I think that's it. You guys are awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was something we talked about too. I think just year after year after year, it's come into like tradition that you just read your student report and like that's it. And so I honestly didn't know that we could do more than just that. And so I think from here on out, we'll definitely, I mean, I'll add on to my comment.
Actually,
I'll be adding on to my
I have
comments.
to interrupt and disagree with you because you've been amazing. You both are, but like
Asking
years
questions.
past, most students just sit at the end and ask nothing. You have been deeply engaged in our conversations, and it means a lot to us to have your voice. And so thank you.
Yeah, I think that's our biggest thing is to just kind of like encourage others in the future. I mean, we graduate in like 4 or 5 months, and so we're only here for so much longer, but I know that there's a great group, at least at Whitney, coming up to possibly be the future president, and so I think our main
And
goal
Rocklin too.
is to just encourage future presidents to step up, and just because you're here doesn't mean you just have to sit there and watch the clock tick, but get involved. I mean, you're here for a reason, so.
I just wanted to say, I know we're talking to that, but I just want to say, I do watch all the board meetings you go to, and I know as ASB president, it is like kind of, oh my goodness, they're so social, and they like to talk to everybody, but at my first meeting, I was so nervous for this. I was like freaking out, and you just talking to me was really helpful, and telling me to talk as much as I can was really helpful, so thank you.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know if they did this in the past, but really like, talk to the other president, and I know that's probably what you guys talk to each other, and so we're just here to really encourage the future and not just have this stop here when we walk across the stage, or hopefully walk across the stage, but in the future too.
So I will say, so thank you for being the Lewis and Clark part. You know, this is a whole, and it's good. It's good to do this journey, right? You got to start somewhere. So thank you. I will echo everything it says, and Rick will laugh at me when I say this, but being the stats data guy, like, and I asked Marty for this. So I love the idea of surveys. Like, I do this in the off days. So, like, if you're interested, and I know Mr. Trejo at Rocklin High School and Ms. Stadler at Whitney High School, they do the stats classes. If you guys have that data and want to take a deeper dive and dig down into it, like there's a whole other level of data analysis that you can do with that. And I know there's a handful of other, whether if we're going from surveys, talking about like quarantine ideas as Trustee Miller was saying, just getting different surveys, posing questions to kids, and taking that data analysis and digging deeper. Because I'll tell you, it's easy to ask a person a yes or no, but when you ask the 5 variations of strongly agree, strongly disagree, and then you compare that to their statistics, you can look at R-squared adjusted, ANOVA, I mean, there's a handful of analysis stuff you can do. I know I'm talking math, but it's really, this is the opportunity to do what you're doing and make it practical, and not just go to a class and have somebody put some data up there and you don't. I mean, this is really useful things that you have an interest in it, and like it's fabulous. And I think there's, whether we have the tools or not, we can figure out. You can do a lot of stuff manually, but I think there's some simple computer stuff that we could do. And I think just if you want to go along with this, whoever on the boards, or if you're if you're in the stats classes, you could take this stuff, you could take it to another level, and you could really dig down in the data and find Are there differences in opinions on different subsets, different groups? Is there variation there? And we'll always say, once you do one survey, you want to do another survey, because there's all that comment analysis. You can do that, and you can go. So I mean, I know I'm getting into the math. I know I'm getting into stuff, but this is really cool to see. It's great that you're engaged. If you want to take and keep going with this, I know we have 2 stats teachers, one at each high school. They would love to take this stuff, and if they're interested, and if they don't want to do it, I will come in and help them with those with the lectures, because this is cool stuff. Like, this is how you start understanding the data and start doing something with it. So. Thank you, guys.
I haven't taken the stats class, but I mean, if you reach out to us, I'm sure get a few pointers. We are down to go farther into this because, like we said earlier, it was really fascinating to see like how many people really wanted to fill it out. And kind of going off the whole survey thing is just in the future making them simple to the point. I know, like as high schoolers, people don't want to sit there and have the comments like multiple choice, boom, boom, boom. That is like what people want to see, and so. That's why we did the last part was optional if people wanted to comment. And I mean, I really didn't think that many people were going to fill it out. I thought it was going to be like multiple choice and done, but people wanted to be heard. And so that's what we found cool about surveys.
And with the surveys too, as you could tell with ours was very spread out, but it was a majority high school students and students in general. So I think one thing that if we did do surveys that we could work on is kind of us and other students branching out to the students, and then the board working to spread out the survey if we do a survey or any other type of information gathering form. The board sending it out to the parents, the teachers, kind of working together to get a wider variety of the community instead of students only or parents only.
Yeah, and I know Mr. Mojet he helped us with the teacher perspective, sharing it to the teachers, and then I know that Jordan's mom and my mom, where everyone was posting it on Facebook and on different Facebook pages, and so that was also really helpful. So thank you to all the parents out there that helped us out.
Did you guys use SurveyMonkey? Is that the free version?
We did a Google form.
Google Forms, got it.
Yes.
So there are tools that are free out there that you can pull data from, and then there's, so very cool, very cool.
Just a couple questions. On the follow-up meeting, would you be welcoming I'd like to include the Victory student trustee as well, so we make sure alternative school
that was one thing
students-
that we were talking about, is we wish we got the Victory president involved, so I think that's one thing that we could work on going forward as well, is doing the Victory.
So we'll work to include them in the follow-up. And then I know that Trustee Setoff made a suggestion, and I still would request the names of the subcommittee from the board, so I know who to invite.
We can do more than one, guys.
I'm happy to do it.
We could do one initial and then rotate out maybe monthly, just a suggestion.
We can do a lot. Don't feel like it's just like 2.
We can, let's do 2 names right now. So I don't know if we're going to have a foot race and Rick's going to run everybody, or Rochambeau?
Yeah.
All right. We can flip coins too. We can play statistical analysis of this all day long.
Pick a number.
So, do I have 2 volunteers?
Yours.
Okay.
I think everyone wants to volunteer.
All right. So we'll go with the new 2. We'll go with Julie and Tiffany, and we'll move forward.
Great. We'll work. Our next board meeting regular meeting is February 10th, so we'll work to get this scheduled prior to February 10th. And we'll invite the Victory student representative as well, and appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Moving to item 12.2, Governor's Proposed Budget Update. Barbara Patterson, Deputy Superintendent, Business and Operations.
Hello? Okay, is that better? Okay, all right. Good evening, President Cantor, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stock. The governor released his 21-22 budget proposal on January 8th, and so tonight we're going to review at a high level the some of his proposals for K-12 education that could impact Rocklin Unified. We'll also review an update of the multi-year projection that was presented at first interim, and then go over next steps in the budget process. So some themes of the governor's budget, you know, throughout his proposal, he's targeting state resources to help the state and its residents recover from the health and economic crisis of COVID-19. So he's got proposals for investments to protect small business, job creation package, equitable access to housing, healthcare, and education for Californians. And he's got proposed additional funding for education in the budget, but there were no specifics. It was just like a placeholder. So we're expecting some language to come out in the next few weeks as they start to hold hearings. They're also trying to rebuild the state's financial reserves. So if you remember back last year at this time, they were projecting a $5.6 billion surplus, and then that went to a $54.3 billion deficit within 2 months as a result of the pandemic. But here we are 6 months later, and with revenue growth surpassing the original expectations, the governor's budget proposal forecasts a dramatic restoration of funding, which we are all very thankful for. We're not getting a V or an L recovery. It's a K-shaped recovery because not everyone is, the recovery has not been even for everyone in California. There are risks to the California economy, and I'm sure you've seen things in the newspapers, such as the California commercial real estate market. There's a worry about collapse in that area, as well as residential rental real estate. Their rents are down in some of the high population areas. The concern about small businesses being able to endure the pandemic economy and staying open. And then there's still question about the rollout of the vaccination and its efficacy. And then we've also had a lot of people who had to leave the workforce to take care of their children, or due to schools not reopening. So all of those are risks to the assumptions built into the budget at this time. So the surplus and shortfall graph here, this looks similar to Rocklin Unified's multi-year projection that we'll be reviewing later in the presentation. But you can see that although there's a surplus in the budget year of 21-22, it's projecting, the state's projecting to have deficit spending in the out years budgets 22-23 through 24-25. And so that is a concern. This is just a historical chart showing funding by the state of Prop 98 for education. And so based on the governor's proposal, there's an additional $3 billion year over year from 2021 to 21-22. This goes all the way back to 08-09, which was when we had the Great Recession. So thankfully, the pandemic did not have the draconian financial impact that was projected last June in the state adopted budget.
There is no new funding proposed in this fiscal year, but a 3.84% COLA is estimated for next year for the local control funding formula, which represents about 83% of the district's state funding in its general fund. But other programs such as special education and the mandated block grant will only receive the 1.5% forecasted statutory COLA for 21-22. But we're not being made whole for this year. This year we got a 0 COLA. They didn't fund the 2.31%, and they're not making that up. It's not like they're giving that back. So that's like a lost year of funding. Now they're trying to get us back to that same level in the LCFF funding formula, but we're not getting that back at all in any of the categorical programs. And in 21-22, they're only projecting to or proposing to fund the categorical such as child nutrition and special education and mandated block grant at the 21-22 COLA level. And just a reminder that 1.5% is still not final. The final statutory COLA will not be known until April, and we'll find out what that is in the May revise. This is good news that they're proposing to pay back some of the deferrals. Now, it really doesn't mean additional revenue for districts. It just means when we're going to get the money. And so it's a tool in the state's tool belt to deal with financial difficulty. And so we are happy to see that they're proposing to pay down the deferrals. Wish they would pay all of them down. This leaves the June apportionment as a deferral from June to July. And this doesn't affect this year's deferral. So starting next month, we are not going to receive 100% of our funding in February, March, April, May, and June of this year. This only applies to next year's budget. So this year, the district will not see approximately 40% of its LCFF funding until next year, and that will be paid back through November on a monthly basis. These next two slides just walk you through the application of the COLA to the local control funding formula and the grade spans, the grade span adjustments in K3 and 912, as well as on the next page, the supplemental and concentration grants. And so everyone is funded at this level until you get to page 10. And just a reminder that the district's unduplicated pupil percentage is approximately 20%. So that means we'll get about 20% of our students will generate the supplemental grant amount, which is 20% above the base. Since we do not have a UPP above 55%, the district does not receive any concentration funding. So this is an average. Again, you have the 4 grade spans, but based on this proposal, this formula would generate $9,380 per ADA based on the 1920, because we're still in the hold harmless year, funding of $11,724, and this also includes the 1920 ADA for the Rocklin Independent Charter Academy. And so that equates to about $4 million increase in funding in LCFF next year. One of the proposals the governor has moved forward is to provide one-time money to expand TK and all-day K. This is a multi-year grant, as I understand it, because right now we don't receive any funding if a student comes in that turns 5 after if we don't get any funding for 4-year-olds, and he's trying to expand it to 4-year-olds. And so we don't know how you will be able to apply, if we will be eligible for these funds. And again, they're one time for an ongoing program, so I think this is just seed money for now. And I'm sure he hopes to make that ongoing. So this is good news if this stays in the budget. So in 1920, they had one-time funding for preschool because we don't receive funding for preschool. And so that was in the 1920 budget. It wasn't in this year. And so he's proposing to make it an ongoing funding for special education preschool grants. And School Services of California has estimated approximately $5,900 per preschooler. And so if this came to pass, that could be, based on our current preschool numbers, about $480,000. So I'm hoping this will stay in the budget. I'm sure you're all aware that on December 27th, President Trump signed the $2.3 trillion Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021 into law. And so this was a combination of the COVID stimulus package of about $900 billion and the federal annual budget that will keep the federal government going through the rest of this fiscal year to September 30th. So of the 80 billion, of the 900 billion, it earmarked 82 billion for education, 7 billion to expand broadband access, 10 billion for child care, and continuing the funding for school meal programs. So of the 80 billion, California is estimated to receive about 10 billion of that. And again, School Services has provided an estimated calculator for school districts. And so of the ESSER funding, we are projecting about $2.1 million coming to Rocklin Unified for that, and we'll be able to spend that through September of 2023, but CDE has not issued any more information on that. So I'm not sure when that will be coming. I mean, last year with the CARES Act, that was passed in March, and we got information in July. So I don't know if that's any indication of how long we're going to be waiting to find out when we get that money. So School Services puts a financial projection dartboard out for districts and county offices and charters to follow. And normally the COLA that School Services puts on their dartboard is the same as the Department of Finance COLA. But at this point, they have come up with something that's significantly different. It's about half of what the Department of Finance has out in the out year. So they're all in agreement on the 21-22, but in 22-23, 23-24, they came up with a much lower COLA, which is really close to what the Legislative Analyst Office came up with in November when they were doing their economic projections. And so for right now, the prudent thing to do is to use the lower COLA and then adjust it at the May revise.
Yeah, if I can just add in, the County Office of Education will advise us on the COLA, the number that we need to use in preparing our budgets to submit to them. So while we're using this now, we will get official guidance that we are expected to use in preparation, and we'll make adjustments as we get that guidance.
I've checked and they're still working on getting that guidance out. So these next two slides are about the pension rates. So for CalPERS, for our classified employees, in the, I believe it's the 1920, no, it's in the 2021 budget, they provided additional funding for the pension systems, which temporarily brought down the rates that we were paying. And so even though there's not new funding in the budget proposal for CalPERS and CalSTRS this year, that's kind of a holdover from a prior budget. So the rates are brought down through 2021-22. But you can see from this chart for CalPERS that over the next few years through 23-24, the CalPERS rates are projected to go up by 5.5%. Just a reminder, the CalPERS board revises and sets their rates every spring based on actuarial studies. So we'll find out in May, June, what the rate will truly be for next year. And then this is STRS as well. For some reason, through 23-24 is not listed, but the dartboard school services provided has 18%. So what you'll see is in the out years is both PERS and STRS are going up substantially in 22, 23, and 23, 24, unless they come back and provide additional funding to bring those rates down. So every year, they look at statewide average reserve levels, and for unified school districts such as Rocklin Unified, for 2018-19, the average unrestricted reserve level was 17.26%. The Government Finance Officers Association suggests 17%, which is about 2 months of expenditures. Rocklin Unified was at 14.8%, so we were a couple percentage points below the statewide average. Those, the rates for 2019-20 financial data should be out in March or April, so I'll bring that back at that time. So the multi-year projection, we took, as I said earlier, the first interim report and updated it with the 3.84% COLA and then the school services recommended rates in the outer years. And I just want to point out that with the 3.84% COLA, we're not projected to deficit spend in 21-22, but we still are deficit spending in 22-23 and 23-24. And so this graph kind of illustrates our problem of the deficit spending in the out years. And so you can see that as we spend more than we bring in, our reserves for economic uncertainty reduces. And in the 23-24 year, which will be our 3-year budget when the board adopts the district's budget in June, we would not hit the 3% that's required for each year. The big unknown here is enrollment for our district because of the significant loss of enrollment and what our growth would be. We hope that our families and students come back, but we really won't know that honestly until August when we see who shows up. And then the COLA adjustments, and if there's any possible additional state or federal funding, we're hearing maybe there's more federal stimulus funding that might come to school districts. So those can all impact and change these projections. And so we'll update our multi-year as we get more information. But what that means is we need to make budget reductions now so that we can start whittling away at that structural deficit that we have in 22, 23, 23, 24. Even if we use the higher COLA rates of the Department of Finance, we would still have a significant deficit, structural deficit problem in those out years. So we started our 2021-22 budget development process, and we just got the governor's budget proposal. We'll be bringing this second interim to you in March. And so our next steps, Cabinet's been working on possible budget reductions for the board to consider. And then the board is holding a budget workshop next Wednesday, January 27th. And then budget reduction recommendations will be presented to the Board of Trustees at the February 10th meeting. If reductions in certificated service are needed, that resolution would be brought to the board on March 3rd to meet the March 15th deadline. And then budget reductions would be brought to the board on March 3rd, and if approved, those would be incorporated in the second interim report that will be presented on March 17th. If there are reductions in classified service required, that resolution would be brought to the board either on March 17th or at the April 21st board meeting. And then we'll have the governor's May revise, which is what we'll base the proposed adopted budget on, and then we'll have the local control accountability plan and budget hearing and approval in June. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Board questions, comments? Kaylee, anything?
You know, I just wanted to echo an invite to the meetings that we're having out in the community. I know as a parent reading through this, it's a lot of information, and thank you, Barbara. It's a lot for us to digest. I know it's a lot for every parent out there to digest. I thank you for the way that you've taken the time to really explain to us the situation we're in and the possibility of some possible tough decisions down the road. And so I really value everybody's input and feedback. And so just echoing again, if you're a parent out there looking at this confused, I would love to invite you to join us at any one of our school sites these next 2 weeks. I think that presentation that we give there really summarizes this in a good 7-minute video, followed by about 20 to 30 minutes of conversation and us listening as trustees. So thank you for putting this together. And again, just to every parent out there, we want to hear what you have to say. And so please join us at those upcoming meetings.
I want to echo thanks. Appreciate this. This is a great presentation. I will say, by the way, there's a big push for full deferrals, and I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but I do think it's possible.
That they might not fund the
He might do. He might actually forgive all for you. He might actually do the full deferrals, not just
wow.
2/3, right? Which would be a helpful step in that direction. So we'll
Yes.
see.
That
We'll
would
see
be
where that
amazing.
goes. But I do think it's possible, along with the preschool. So the only thing I say is I realize I'm a broken record on this, but I think it bears saying every single time is that, and the reason. So I appreciate both Rochelle talking about it earlier and Tiffany mentioning these things. The reason that we're having these conversations, to be just crystal clear, is that even with the great news we're hearing, and we're very happy that the budget's looking better. I mean, it's a huge difference for us and a huge difference for our community, but it doesn't change, as you pointed out on the slide, the out year, the structural deficit that we have to fix. And the longer we wait, the harder it is to fix it. And so we have an obligation, a fiscal responsibility to be thinking right now about how we can make sure our budget is in line so we don't have draconian cuts in the out years. And as a result, we're going to have to make some hard decisions sooner rather than later. The reason we're going to the community is we don't want to make it in isolation. We want to hear, Kaylee, from students, and we want to hear from community members and PD to understand and the way that I like to, we talked about this, is to think of this from a asset perspective, which is not what do you want to cut, but what do you want to protect? Like, what matters a lot to you? I will tell you, I was on with the Granite Oaks folks. What was very clear to me from what I heard from them, and Barbara, you were there with me, and I appreciate it, was what they called social emotional, but the idea of the beyond academics, the idea of music or art or sports or all the things that they feel brought their kids to school and made them love being there was a critical part of it, and they wanted to protect that. So and I appreciate hearing that, and I hope we can. We'll see. But these are hearing this firsthand, understanding it makes a big difference. And so we are going to have to make hard decisions, Kaylee, at the end of the day, right, whether we want to or not. But having this impact, having these folks weigh in is going to matter a lot as we make these difficult choices. Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Barbara, something I didn't understand until I spoke to you about this. Could you maybe make it a little bit clearer why it's important to make the cuts now in order to not have to make bigger cuts later?
So if we make ongoing cuts, one time or deferrals don't help as much. They help a little bit, not as much. If you make a cut in 21, 22, let's say you cut $1 million, to make it a simple example. If you cut $1 million in 21, 22, that third year that you're out, you've saved $3 million. So if you don't cut it until the third year out, you would have to cut $3 million in that 1 year, which means you'd have to cut deeper into program and people possibly. So the earlier you make the cuts, the less deep you have to go. Is that grammatically proper?
Thank you. That was really cleared it up.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Barbara. I think we're aware. It's there. And it's a great example. If I cut $1 million now, it's $3 million later. Even though I think a lot of us tend to just think this year and I'll manage next year later. But like as we were saying, Kaylee, it's easy to kick the can down the road. But that's why we're here. You got to make tough cuts now. So you'll see it in college. You're going to say, you know what? I don't need to take that class. And then all of a sudden, man, I got to take 16 classes at this point later. So trust me, it's the learning process. You can talk to the guy who had 18 units one time, and it was a pain.
Oh,
so
no.
Live and learn. So thank you. Now moving to our pending agenda items. Trustees, do you have any items that you would like to place on the pending agenda?
Just clarify, I heard a pending agenda item on February 10th around the student trustee, kind of reporting back to the rest of the board around the student trustees. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say the same thing. I think that's Jordan. He's at the next meeting, so hopefully he'll be able to come in, tell everyone what happened at the meeting with Julie and Tiffany, and let everybody know.
And we can't make a trade.
I could still be here. I could sit in the back.
Excited to have Jordan.
So there was 2 more things I think we had to manage and close, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
President Counter.
The board will now adjourn to a closed session regarding the items listed on the agenda. And then when we're done with those, we'll come back in and close it again. So for those of you that are, oh, go ahead. I was going to say, for those of you that are still at home and hang out, if you want to see the close, it'll be in a little bit of time.
We're not going to do any business. We're just going to wrap up. So don't stay.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Go to bed.
All you that want to see Rick Miller,
Exactly.
please stick around.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you. We'll hang up now and then.
Come on now.
I can't.